Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, series, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is our episode 4 deep dive of Spark of the Everflame by Penn, where we are covering chapters 22 through 29. But before we begin this episode's deep dive, please listen closely to our spoiler warning, because this includes spoilers for all 3 released books in the Kindred's Curse saga, which includes Spark, Glow, and Heat of the Everflame.
We get King Ulther's final words, at least to DM. So if you know, you know. And if you don't know, then please go finish the series. We will be here when you're done.
Next, we Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
You all have never heard me cover a kiss scene like I'm about to cover this kiss scene. So please be mindful of those little listening ears.
Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events. Nicole and I are hosting an epic Empyrean trivia night in Boulder, Colorado on July 10th. We will be featured guests at Enchanticon in St. Louis, Missouri, August 15th through 17th.
Then we will be at the Everflame Ball along with Penn for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. We will be back then at the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
And then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where we are interviewing Rebecca Yarros again at Disney World this time.
Check out our website or the links below for information to all of these events.
Last thing before we jump into the Spark of the Everflame episode 4, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and just so much more all around, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 membership tiers that you can join. Number 1, The Descended, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and I, a book club. Literally, as we're recording this, tonight we are interviewing Rebecca Robinson, who wrote The Serpent and the Wolf. We're so excited. You also get exclusive author interviews like Penn or Callie Hart, community events like trivia, promo codes for live events, plus exclusive designs and 20% off all merch. That is for $6 a month. Or you can join the Royal Family, which includes everything from The Descended, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. Then we have the Crown's Council, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus more behind-the-scenes content, a welcome gift from Lexi and I, giveaways. We just gave away some copies of Serpent and the Wolf, a private Discord channel called Careel, and your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And really and truly, thank you so much for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into our livelihood. It's all because of you.
And now it is time to run into the Burning Armory. Dun, dun, dun.
To start off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing this stretch of chapters. So gather round as we consult with our royal advisors to discuss what happens in chapters 22 through 29 of Spark of the Everflame. Take it away!
Chapter 22. Several weeks later. DM might be banned from the palace, but that doesn't mean she can't go in to help in Lumnos City. Lost in her thoughts of judgment for the others' fashion choices, DM is approached by the one and only Lily Corbois. Using this chance encounter to her advantage, Lily has the opportunity to thank DM for saving her life. Oh, and to try to set DM up with her older brother Luther. Matchmaker, chapter 23. It's dinner time at the Bellator house, and DM decides it's the perfect time to tease Teller about his crush on Lily. And Teller, being the oh-so-helpful brother that he is, decides to poke back by announcing that Henry proposed to DM, and she's left him hanging. Touché, Teller. Wanting some love advice, DM asks her father about how he knew her mother was the one for him. And after telling him and Arlie's love story, Andre attempts to give DM that fatherly advice. When you know, you know. DM's like, helpful, Dad. Just as she starts to ask the very important question about her mother, boom! An explosion goes off. Seeing the casualties are towards Lumnos City, DM knows in her bones that this is her fault. She is correct. So she rushes to help just as more explosions rumble through the night. Chapter 24. Sprinting to the healer's center, DM grabs everything she can, and she's in and out faster than a McLaren pit stop. On her way to the explosion, Diem is cut off by 6 mortal men, one of which is none other than the still waiting for an answer, Henry. Not wanting to waste a single moment, Diem tries to skirt around the group, but Henry holds her down, and not in the fun way. No, these guardians want her, the healer, to ignore her training, ignore the explosion, and ignore that she just saw a group of guardians and go home. Not agreeing with this plan, Diem plays along before running straight towards Lumnos City, leaving the very angry guardians and her medical bag in the dust. Chapter 25. Diem arrives in Lumnos City and sees the Bennett Armory up in flames. With empty pockets but open hands, Diem offers to help in any way she can, but the guards don't care that she knows the big man in charge. Doing her best impression of the inflatable tube man from a car dealership, Diem flags down the boss man himself, but Luther Corbois is sus of Diem, doing everything she can to plead her case, except going down on her knees. Not yet, Diem. Luther finally agrees that she can help. Like, with no supplies, like she forgot to bring her number 2 pencil for the SATs, Diem instead offers emotional support for the injured descended, but not all make it. In her guilt, Diem offers to go into the still burning building and find the remaining survivors. Through the fire and flames, Diem unfortunately finds body after body of guards that didn't survive the explosion or, being murdered, it seemed. So collapsing to the floor, Diem accepts her fate, closes her eyes, and everything goes dark. Chapter 26. Looks like it's WWE time because the voice in her head says, "Fight!" Pulling herself off the floor, Diem decides she must be hallucinating again because the flames are no longer hurting her like they did before. Interesting. Navigating the fiery maze of death, Diem finds a conscious survivor. Perth, my boy! Using her totally not descended strength, Diem dislodges the massive fucking log trapping Perth and lays him on top of another alive descendant's unconscious body, like a boogie board. And like a snail with a U-Haul on its back, she drags the men towards the crumbling entrance where a very panicked Luther is waiting. Using Luther's rope magic, kinky, she wraps the strands of light around the unconscious man's wrists and Luther pulls them out. But just as the 2 men go to safety, the ceiling collapses and everything goes dark again. Chapter 27. We're living in an Evanescence song. Wake me up inside, can't wake up, save me from the darkness. Chapter 28. She lives. Diem finally cracks her eyes open and finds herself in an unfamiliar but cozy bedroom, and it smells amazing. Of course it does. Luther sees that Diem's back from the dead and jumps right into asking what the hell happened, but swinging her legs off the bed, Diem notices that she feels perfectly fine. Not even a scratch. Ready to GTFO, Diem makes moves to leave, but Luther has one last request. Diem, will you marry me? Just kidding. The king has been acting weird, and you need to go look at him as the healer. In the king's chambers, there's a knock on the door, and Luther rushes out into the hall, leaving Diem and her very sharp knives alone with the unconscious king. Chapter 29. With nothing else to do, Diem whispers the rite of endings to the dying man. But then the king grips hold tight onto Diem's hands, like impressively strong for an almost dead guy. The king croaks out a few, obviously delusional and not at all prophetic, words before a new voice takes over. It's much older and much more female. Grandmama, is that you? After delivering a few more hella cryptic words from Uther's body, the king takes a shuddering breath. Perfect timing too, because the guards choose that exact moment to barge back into the room, only to find a confused and utterly terrified Diem sitting on the ground, holding a knife. Oops. But after being accused of killing the king, Diem rushes out of the palace with Luther hot on her heels. Grabbing her arm, Luther pulls Diem to a stop, ready to hash this out. But Diem has other plans, holding her blade to his neck. Too bad for Diem. Luther very much enjoys his position. He pulls her in and make out, makety out. I said, let me die with the taste of you on my lips. Make out! And Nicole's soul leaves her body. But it doesn't last as long as I want because Luther is forcing Diem to confront what he already knows. She is 100%, without a doubt, no way immortal. No! Really?
Are you tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens? I know I am. Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy.
Typical children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise, filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy additives growing kids should never eat. That's why Hiya created a super-powered, chewable vitamin. While many children children's vitamins have 5 grams of sugar, which is known to contribute to a variety of health issues. Hiya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy additives, yet it tastes great even for those picky eaters.
My kids absolutely love every single morning when they each get to pick their color of their Hiya vitamin and then they get to eat it. And they now know that they can only have one because I always ask for more. It's like, nope, we just get one a day because that's all you need. And then also my kids love smoothies. So adding the greens powder into that, it just makes me feel like I am winning as a parent because I don't know how my children survive off of chicken nuggets and cheese. But now it's like, haha, here's your nutrients.
We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/FFG. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to hiyahealth.com/FFG to get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults.
Okay, friends, it is time to reach for our foraging magic and unravel key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing theories, and so much more. Who's ready for a montage? A few weeks go by after DM's disastrous day that we finished up with last week, and autumn is turning into winter. Moira is staying true to her word and not letting DM join the healers when they're called to the palace. However, sometimes Lana does accompany Moira there, and every time they come back from the palace, DM is terrified that they'll bring news of a rebel attack using that secret entrance she unfortunately revealed to Vance. In other words, DM is living in fear of the likely consequences from her mistake. She wants to warn Lana so the trainee is on her toes for a rebel attack, or at least share her guilt of bringing the Guardians into their world. Lana is the only other healer who has an inkling of what DM's going through, and knows the balance between being a healer who upholds their vows and being a member of the Guardians. DM is so alone in her feelings, and she wants to be able to talk to someone else who can relate. Like, that's such a human thing to want to do. But at the same time, DM is too afraid to admit the mistake that she shared with Vance to Lana, who, as we discussed last episode, did not reveal that secret entrance to the Guardians. And there's that fact that Lana and DM aren't close. There's extra tension between them these days, both knowing the other is in the Guardians and never addressing the elephant in the room. DM is ashamed of being a healer involved with the Guardians, but still actively participating, that is the key, to the point she can't bear to look another healer Guardian in the face. And from what we expect from Lana's end, she feels extra tension because she is crushing on Henry, who has now proposed to DM.
Okay, so here's my headcanon. I think that Lana found out that Henry proposed to DM, and like maybe Henry told her because he's so excited, and you know they're friends, right? Totally friends. And Lana is just heartbroken because she lost the guy she's been crushing on so hard. She lost him to this healer chick who she's probably really jealous of because, you know, DM's like this full healer status. She's like well known for her mother and yada, yada, yada. So she's extra freezing out DM right now, which does make it a little funny because DM thinks the reason Lana is super somber right now is because she's, you know, stuck between a rock and a hard place as DM is. But in reality, she's just glaring daggers because she's like, you stole my man, who's actually not my man at all.
Yet.
Over
these past few weeks, DM has been volunteering for patient visits to keep herself working far, far away from the healer center. And while Moira banned her from the palace, DM has been allowed to care for descended patients in Lumno City, all the while keeping her eyes and ears open for info per Vance's request. It had allowed me to fall into an easy pattern of deluding myself into thinking I was useful without taking any kind of risks that might jeopardize the lives of everyone around me. Ah, yes, DM wants to be involved because she does still believe in the overarching mission of the Guardians. But she struggles to live with the consequences of active involvement, and she's trying to distance herself from any kind of responsibility that puts her family and innocent lives at risk. So this, simply doing her job as a healer and listening for information that I honestly don't know if she would want to tell Vance. I say that before we go into Glow though, so never mind. This routine makes her feel better about herself and her usefulness. Because remember, DM wants to be useful. She wants to make a difference. I just think she wants her usefulness to stay arbitrary, so nothing bad comes of her usefulness, which these rebels are going up against their oppressors, and Vance is in charge now. She is consciously choosing to live in her Delulu DM world. Oh, by the way, that voice inside DM hasn't let up either. It's no longer slumbering, it's waiting. It's like it knows that the king is going to pass soon, and it's just waiting for DM to be crowned. It's a constant hum within DM, and sometimes its call to fight is nearly all-consuming, specifically when she is close to the palace. How interesting! So much foreshadowing that she's going to be the next crown. I love it. You know what hasn't happened in the past few weeks? Diem has not given Henry an answer to his marriage proposal. I don't know. If you can't decide you want to marry a guy after being best friends for 2 decades and 2 weeks after his proposal, you're still not sure? I hate to break it to you, girl, but he's not the one for you. And I know that Diem knows that deep down. She just can't grapple with it yet.
While we are discussing Henry, Diem notes how he has all but disappeared, which she's quietly grateful for. Again, not a good sign after a dude proposes to you. I couldn't let Brett out of my sight for a week after he proposed to me. Yes, this is the mission, to blow up the armory.
So, now that we're all caught up on these past few weeks, Diem runs into Lily, and I just want to pull several highlights to take away from this conversation before we jump straight to the family dinner. First of all, this exchange reveals more of Lily's character, and it's just really fun to see on the page. She's a teenage girl who is really sweet and thoughtful, and it's kind of funny how she can also ramble. Her personality shines through the page here. And it definitely seems like she has a crush on Teller too. We get lots more foreshadowing about Diem's healing magic that she unknowingly used to save Lily's life, as the girls discuss how fast Lily healed and how that's very unusual for the Descendants' standard quick healing. Diem learns that Luther has been complimenting her, and he has been very impressed with her, which is unusual for him because not many people impress him. Understandably, Diem takes Luther's interest in her as a threat upon hearing he's asked for information on her and even gone to search for her in Mortal City. But Lily insists that Luther trusts Diem when he can't trust anyone as the heir to the crown, and it's probably because Diem's mean to him. And I love how Diem's like, I'm not mean to him, and it's like, oh, yes, you are.
Yeah, she is.
Basically, Lily is sweetly trying to play matchmaker for her older brother and Teller's sister, talking Luther up, explaining that he's actually quite nice.
This reminds me how in next book, Eleanor will mention how Luther keeps smiling at her in this very un-Luther-like way. And Diem thinks, well, it's just so that he can get in her good graces. Well, this might turn into a whole new round of how Delulu is Diem.
Oh my gosh, yes!
Well, I'm not gonna lie though. I'm gonna rate pretty low for her, at least honestly for right now, especially, because everything she knows about Luther, his status, his role in the kingdom, and his role in her mother's disappearance, it's a pretty bright neon sign to don't trust this guy. And especially as she gets into courtly politics next book, she might be a little bit more forgiving with some people, but with Luther's hot and coldness with how he is behind closed doors with her and how he is in front of other people, I understand why she's like, oh, he has his own agenda.
And of course, in this conversation, we feel Diem's shame about breaking her healer's vows and this perception that she is a great role model, specifically for Teller. But it does go back to why she can't look Lana in the eye. Lana is the only other healer who knows, from Diem's own perspective, that she's a fraud. She no longer has the moral high ground to stand on, which she's always prided herself in standing on, and she's drowning in this loss of identity. Lastly, there's this ever-present us versus them theme running deep in the background of Diem and Lily's conversation, and of course this whole series. From the way her friends act when Lily stops to talk to a mortal, to Lily's curiosity about why Diem is in Lumno City, she was treating a patient, to Lily's innocent invitation for Diem and Teller to join her and Luther for dinner at the palace, to which Diem turns around and invites Lily to her family dinner, knowing how badly they would be treated by everyone as dinner guests at the palace and how much safer and more welcome it is to come to their house instead. And then we have Lily showing interest in being a healer, but we find out she's not allowed to work, which is an unfathomable idea for Diem, where working is the only means of survival for the mortals. And here's this princess who lives in a palace and will never know hunger, and she's not allowed to work. I'm calling it now. I think Lily will become the first descended healer who is not from Fortos by the end of the series.
Oh, I hope so. Mm-hmm. And as of right now, Diem's ability to see through the Descendants' POV, it is so minimal, especially in this moment where she learns about Lily and this impossible ambition that she has because she is of such high status. While this might be met with a near snort from Diem now, next book, Diem will realize how the Descended, because of their own classes and all of this kind of stuff, they're put into their own boxes and have their own caste system. And some of them aren't unable to chase their dreams, like here with Lily. Later that night, we have one of my personal favorite scenes in this entire book, the Bellator family dinner. When Penn was on our book club last year, she said this was one of her favorite scenes to write, mainly because it's so normal family mode, but also because this is the last time all three of the Bellators are together and normal. The next time we see these three on the page, it will be when Diem and her father are basically having a screaming match. And then after that, every subsequent time will be when Diem is queen. But right now, it is a casual family dinner, which means the siblings are, being siblings.
I do love just how wholesome this conversation is. From Diem teasing Teller about Lily and Andre's obliviousness to the sibling teasing, to the heartfelt discussion accompanied with whiskey about Andre and their mother's love story and Diem's own future with Henry.
Andre is such a dad in this scene. Like, he's playing along while simultaneously being completely out of the loop of the secret teasing language that Diem and Teller have together about each other's love lives. Also, Teller's sweet little innocence in this scene around his crush, around the whiskey. It's adorable. I'm like, aw, you're a 17-year-old. You're so cute.
Teller retaliates to Diem's playful teasing about Lily with his own knowledge about his sister's love life. She should have seen that one coming.
Yeah.
He very heavily implies that Henry has asked Diem to marry him, to the point where even Andre picks up on it, and then is the one to share that Diem hasn't answered him since he proposed 3 whole weeks ago. Ho, ho, ho! This most certainly has Andre's attention. And Diem is mortified because, like I was saying earlier, I think deep down she knows she doesn't want to marry Henry, but it's expected of her. Not like her family is going to make her, but just like it's kind of just general knowledge that that's where they're going to be heading in their futures. It's also the right thing to do. It's the safe thing to do. And as mortals in this world, you kind of got to go with whatever is safest, right? Andre is number one dad as he recognizes Diem's hesitancy and that there's more to this than her just needing some time to think over this big decision. Family bonding time over whiskey! This is so up my alley. Love how Teller gets a little splash in his and he's all annoyed. My 17-year-old self would be too, Teller. Although the sentiment of including him in this is really sweet. And now as a parent, I'm totally team Andre here.
Diem asks Andre a question that she's been haunted by in her own relationship. How did he know that Arlie was the one? Diem hasn't been able to ask anyone for relationship advice. Her mother is gone. The one and only friend she has is the dude who popped the question. And things have been off with Moira. And the only one she's talked about this with is Teller, who just said pretty somberly, whatever makes you happy, which is not advice at all.
That is not a vote of confidence from a sibling about your future spouse. I will say that.
Andre and Orly's marriage has always been a happy one in their children's eyes. So if Diem is to have one too, it is time to ask advice from the one person she can. But the answer requires quite a bit of a backstory.
So Andre knew of Orly long before they started courting. Orly was a well-respected healer in the army, often being sent on important missions. That's very interesting. Many people, including some descended, were impressed by her bravery and intelligence. Though Andre had only met Orly a handful of times, he was smitten by her beauty from the start. She was able to command every room she walked into, even if she was surrounded by soldiers with dangerous weapons and even more dangerous egos. And this presence is what ultimately drew Andre in. But the commander was convinced that all he needed in life was his job, and he had no time for a woman or especially a family. It wasn't until Orly left on her highly confidential year-long mission that Andre admitted to himself that he had this incredible woman right in front of him, and he let her walk away. We now know that this mission was when she went to Kareel and met Ophiuchi and got pregnant and had Diem. During the year Orly was gone, Andre decided that if she ever came back, he'd confess his feelings the second he saw her again. And guess what? He didn't. No, the second Andre looked at Orly when she got back, he booked it on out of there. Saying he had taken on every manner of danger you could imagine. But the idea of asking to court Orly was true terror. Having avoided Orly for a full month. Wow, that's even more than Diem is avoiding Henry right now. But for very different reasons. Andre finally grew the giant hanging balls to ask to court her. They weren't courting for a very long time when Andre could tell Orly was hiding something from him. But knowing she was a private person, he was willing to take whatever she was willing to give. One day, Orly showed up with Diem in her arms. Ah, that's what she was hiding. A child.
Yeah,
dang, she's got some really good babysitters that they were dating, and he didn't know that. She confessed that she had fallen pregnant and had given birth while away on her mission, and that she was going to leave the army. Orly was ready to get up and leave without saying anything, but she changed her mind at the last minute, wanting to give Andre some closure. Knowing what he wanted, Andre knew there was no sacrifice he wouldn't make to keep them both in his life. His career, life in Fortos, and his goals all came second to Orly and Diem being in his life. Because ultimately, being with the one you love and living a life you want with them is more important than anything. And in Andre's case, he just knew that Orly was the one. There was no deciding, like Diem is going through right now with Henry. It's interesting that Diem is so resistant to commitment when her parents are apparently the perfect lovey-dovey couple. Yes, it shows that there are different kinds of love, but it also reflects that when you know, you know.
Okay, just to make my romantic heart happy, when did you know Jake was the one?
Oh my goodness. So my dog Ollie is the biggest drooler in the entire world. And it had actually kind of been an issue with previous boyfriends because like it was a lot of drool, everybody, like a lot of drool. And early on in our relationship, Ollie shook his head and just like drool went everywhere. And it even got some on Jake's cheek. And I was like, oh, there went that relationship right there. And Jake just wiped it off and he gave Ollie the biggest hug and like petting him and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, you can't help it, buddy, can you? And that was when I pretty much knew. Okay, what about you with Brett?
We were at freshman orientation for college and we were chatting and it was like the rest of the world just like did not matter. It was just like him and me. We were joking. We could both tell we were nervous because it was like, you know, first day of school vibes. And I just felt like so calm and safe. And I remember I went back to Colorado and I told my two best friends at the time, I just met the man I'm going to marry.
And then you broke up.
And then it took us 5 years, but we got there eventually. I remember when I used to hear the words, when you know, you know, and I would have a very similar reaction to what Diem has here. Basically, I would roll my eyes and say, yeah, that's, you know, rich. But then it happened with Brett. Again, this is 5 years later. And it's like, oh, I get it now. It was really meant to be. It brings me back to what the madam said last episode about not settling for a mediocre life and a mediocre man. But instead, go be exceptional. And if he's really the one, he'll come along for the ride. That's what Andre is doing here with Diem and Arlie. And that is what Luther is going to do with everything with Diem. Luther Bell's going off. Hello. But right now, Diem does not have that knowing feeling with Henry. But he seems like he should be the one. Everything on paper points to it. He's her best friend. They've known each other for years. They know each other better than anyone, or at least they believe they do. You know, they've always talked about spending their lives together. They were their first partner to have sex with and actually means something beyond just like, you know, getting it on. When it comes to love, though, this is all before Luther, Diem is very logical. And here with feeling like she just needs more time and she's hoping her brain will eventually convince itself to fall in love. But when Diem and Luther share their first kiss later this episode, yep, I had to bring it in, these words from her father will resurface. Quote, "The truth is, I just knew." And she's like, fuck!
Andre seems so confident in Orly's eventual return, which brings Diem to ask a point-blank question. Do you know where she is? Like we mentioned in episode 1, Orly told Andre she had a big trip coming up and she would let him know before she left for it. But she didn't actually alert him before her departure, leading him to be in a bit of a limbo. I think that he simply has to believe that she will come back, especially after her preemptive heads up, because he loves her so dearly and to keep his own sanity, he firmly believes his wife will return, and that must have been the trip that she was on and she just didn't get a chance to tell him. However, this intensifying family dinner is cut short when a loud boom goes off in the distance. More booms follow, and Andre recognizes it as explosion sounds. Uh-oh. Bombs are going off in Lumno City. And Diem innately knows this is her fault after she gave the Guardians so much valuable intel. She's been waiting for something like this to happen since she shared the information about the secret entrance to the palace. Like we were talking about earlier with how these last 3 weeks have been, she's been holding her breath whenever Moira returns from the palace, and Diem is just hoping there wasn't a rebel attack. This is her worst nightmare coming true. Something bad and dangerous has happened, and she knows it is her fault. It's all she can think about in the midst of barely being able to think with this terrifying, gut-wrenching realization. Laden with guilt and ignoring her father's protests that this is in Lumno City and how there's other healers to help, Diem races off into the forest to get supplies from the healer center and then check on the damage she knows in her heart was inflicted because of her.
It doesn't even cross Diem's mind that her own safety would be at risk, whether it's from the explosions or from the Descended themselves. All she can think of are the plausible casualties. She doesn't know if this was the Bennett Armory where the evening guards would have been on duty, or if it was the palace itself and the Guardians snuck in through the secret entrance, killing children in their beds.
So while she's frantically collecting all the supplies she thinks she may need, all of her thoughts are consumed with how these injuries from the explosives, wherever this was, whether the armory or the palace, they'll need gauze and more items to lessen pain, clot bleeding, and help the burned victims. Her insistence to run to help, to be the healer that the inevitably injured will need, is fueled by her guilt. If she had kept her healer vows and not divulged information, be it the armory blueprint or the hidden entrance location, from these patient visits, this would not be happening. So the healer in her has to be reactionary now, the exact thing she had been so upset about after Ron killed mother and child. Diem is trying desperately to fix a problem that she created. It's all she can focus on as she hurriedly prepares to head into Lumno City and help. But it wouldn't be fair to say this is all entirely fueled by her guilt. If Diem was not associated with this explosion in any way, I still think she would have gone to help, even if it is in Lumno City. It's the kind of person she is. She has a big heart and wants to help everyone.
With her bag overloaded with silverworm and willow bark for pain, marigold and lavender for burns, clove to numb, yarrow for speed clotting, and comfrey for breaks and tears, which, pause because you know what's going to happen. We're in a plant medicine. Watch! Some of these are used in real life. I could not find any instances of silverworm, but willow bark is sometimes referred to as nature's aspirin and reduces pain and inflammation, which is exactly what Diem is using it for here. Marigold can be used for skin injuries and inflammation. I even saw it can be used on sunburns, which it is used for burns here. Lavender is used for calming. Clove contains a chemical called eugenol that decreases pain. Yarrow can help with stomach cramps, and comfrey can treat minor sprains and joint pain, which is again what it is used for here. So most pretty spot on, which is awesome. Diem takes off running for the road to Lumno City, where she sees that the plumes of smoke are rising from the west of the palace, and her knees wobble in relief. But then, as she sprints down the path, 6 figures approach her with 2 large carts. Trying to run past them, her mind too focused on her goal to save the wounded, she almost doesn't hear a very familiar voice call out her name. It is Henry, and the 6 men are some of the guardians of the Everflame, who just finished a very successful mission of setting bombs up in the armory, going in, murdering some guards on duty. And as for those 2 large carts, Diem later, when she's making her way through the burning building, will notice a room called Blades, and that appears to have been emptied. Right here on these 2 carts, that is where all the blades went.
Fortosian blades, I bet, because it's a descended army, after all, and those blades are very expensive and are the only thing that can cut the descended.
With this being Vance's crew, with Vance's ideals, it is no surprise that these men view this mission as a major victory. They just set Bennett back months on shipments of weapons that he provides to the guards, and those guards regularly kill mortals. They also just got who knows how many weapons, and now they have way more resources for their rebellion.
In chapter 30, Henry will say that they were able to get enough weapons to arm half of the rebel cells in Amarian.
That's so crazy.
In all 9 realms in the rebel cells, that they can supply half of them from this. These 2 things in and of themselves against the oppressors are major victories. Like, just plain and simple, it is. Yeah.
And they just killed who knows how many descended. The bloodlust they've been craving to act on was finally fulfilled.
And that's the bad part of this. That's where we do not call this a major victory.
No.
Penn very intentionally brings up the push and pull of these 2 groups that are pitted against each other. What the Guardians want to achieve is morally the right answer. They want better treatment and overall freedom for the mortals. They want to take back what was theirs already. They are the resistance against the evil oppressors, and we as a society celebrate that and gravitate toward that group of people fighting for what's right. Think of Star Wars. Yep. That's the most obvious example. Harry Potter is another one too. We all know those. It's like the Hunger Games. I could go on and on and on. And yet, Vance's aggressive stance to make that happen and what he's willing to do to win is where we and Diem balk. Violence to fight violence isn't right. Believing everyone in the oppressive group is evil and needs to be exterminated is definitely not right. So that leaves us with the question that haunts Diem in this series. Where's the balance? What is the solution that grants the oppressed their rights and freedom without violence? As Orly will insist in Heat, she never would have allowed this kind of explosion from the Guardians. She's more of the stealthy, strategic kind of rebel against the oppressors. For instance, on Kirill, she's planting bombs. It's not to kill the crowns, although that will be a consequence for poor Montios, but it is so that they can have a distraction and then the rebels can take over and therefore have leverage that is in a non-violent way against the Descended. According to Vance and his minions, he doesn't think that Orly has been leading the Guardians to progress because she's not willing to do what needs to be done, the violence that needs to be done to make that big change.
And the men celebrate this victory with quiet snickers, clapping each other on the back, and even Henry smiles as the final bomb goes off.
When DM sees Henry smile after another explosion, after more people have just been severely hurt or killed, she goes on high alert. It was no accident that these men, including Henry, were here on the road leaving Lumnos as explosions go off. And when she puts two and two together, Vance addresses her by Sister DM. Now, I think he does always call her Sister DM, but right here, it is his reminder to her that she is one of them. She is a guardian. And then he confirms DM's biggest fear. This victory was able to happen because of her. It's her victory too. He's like, come on, let's celebrate all together. But he also kind of knows her hesitancy here, right? This doesn't change DM's mind. In fact, if anything, it solidifies it that she has to go and help and fix this. And yet, despite her protests that she needs to leave, Henry doesn't let go of her. In fact, after Vance says they can't let her go, Henry tightens his grip on DM's shoulder and, with a pleading expression, I will give him that, refuses to take his hands off her when she demands it. All these other men are closing in around them in a circle, trapping DM from leaving. They can't let their mission be compromised by DM. It's a victory and they need to keep it that way. They need to ensure there are no mortals near the scene of the crime, so it doesn't raise any suspicion about who's at fault for this incident. A little LOL at that. The Guardians are not as sneaky as they think, and Luther absolutely knows that it was them.
I am going to do my best here. Does Henry not want DM running in to save the Descended because they just risked so much to have this successful mission? Yes, absolutely. Is he looking at that from a place of wanting to protect DM, his best friend, the woman he loves, because he knows the Descended will already be on edge and furious at anyone who they can even slightly point fingers at? Yes, he does not want his girl in danger. And yet, this is definitely overpowered right now by his wish for her to not go in and work against the Guardians and this mission. If it was care for her, I think he would have at least tried to get through to her more versus clamping down on her shoulders and holding her back, which is what Vance was wanting him to do.
I can appreciate now is not a good time to be able to stop and talk. For one, yes. DM is not letting him do that when he does try. Again, I will give Henry that little sliver right now. I'm putting on my unofficial Henry hat right now. I'm saving the big Henry hat for next episode. Y'all are going to love my Henry hat. Just little teaser there for that. I think for me, what solidifies Henry is behaving this way for the Guardian's sake first and DM's safety second is when he says, please don't make me do this.
Yeah.
You know who would never, ever, ever in a million years act this way against her? Luther.
You know who would have the guts to put her safety first and care about his woman who he says is his number one love, his best friend, and he wants to be with her for the rest of his life? Luther. So we're giving Henry that. But we can tell by the way he's holding her back. He's hauling her to him against her will. He's looking at Vance for permission to answer her questions, which of course Vance denies and therefore Henry denies. And as DM is trying to free herself, oh, this is unforgivable, all of the men circle around her and Henry's grip tightens on her shoulder and he refuses to release her despite her protest. Henry, he might believe that he's keeping her in safety, but any man who actually cares about a woman would never put her in a situation where she is trapped and surrounded by those who are supposedly more powerful than her. Yes, she is Descended. They are not. She could probably overpower them, but she does not know that right now. And more specifically, none of them know it as well. They know they're overpowering her, and Henry is clamping her in place. My heart would be vomited out of my gullet is how that would work. Now, putting that aside, I will give Henry one more thing in his defense. From chapter 18, after DM goes to get the blueprints from the Bennett Armory, Henry says, quote, "This isn't just information. This could be enough to blow it up entirely." And a grin appears on DM's face as a result. So technically, he's already hinted heavily, this is what's going to happen based off of this material. And based off her reaction in the moment that was driven by him looking at her with pride for, the first time, he believes that she also wants this outcome.
And Diem, who is such an achiever, who needs to be successful in what she does for her identity, when she just heard, oh my gosh, this is perfect information, this is really good, she was thinking very much selfishly, oh, I did good, versus the consequences of literally blowing something up. Yes.
But now she's seeing the consequences, and she clearly is not on the same side as Henry, which is why he still gets a big ol' L. It's not smiting L, even though I wanted to.
You're not giving him a smiting L here, but you did when he gave her respect?
Yes!
I don't know if I agree with your Henry dish outs, but okay.
I'm not giving him a smiting L here because I'm trying my best to put myself in his shoes. Every single thing the Guardians have done was, in the past few weeks, at least this little group, was to ensure that this mission went well. And if a mortal came running up and into the fray, it would jeopardize it. So I do understand. I am absolutely giving him an L with how he is handling this situation. It is from putting the Guardians first. The reason I gave him a smiting L prior is because he should have given her respect long before she did anything for his cause.
Okay, I'm not going to open up that can of worms again.
Don't touch me! I will pull out my notes!
The fact that there is so much back and forth analysis of Henry is exactly why I love this series and why we were really excited to deep dive it. Henry is not objectively a bad person. He is fighting for a cause to save his people, and in order to have a chance at winning, you have to fight dirty.
Well, literally think about what we were just saying about how much of a victory this is for the Guardians.
Yes.
This is a massive win if we are just looking in Henry's shoes. Absolutely.
Yes, and he's trying to protect Diem, but it ultimately comes down to him protecting the Guardians. He's in a tough position, I will give him that, because suddenly protecting the Guardians and keeping his girl safe are at odds, and he has to choose.
Yeah.
I don't think he's consciously choosing the Guardians because he really does want to protect Diem. He thinks that he's doing both in this moment. But to protect her from harm in this moment is outwardly standing up against the Guardians, his newfound brothers, and that's not something he's willing to do. That's not something that he can even fathom doing. Remembering her father's advice that if she's fighting an opponent stronger than her, like these 6 men bigger than she is, Diem has to fight smarter. Yes, Andre prepared her for a situation like this, because no way in hell will Diem be obedient and listen to these men who have just likely injured a bunch of people and are celebrating, calling it a victory. She is still just as determined as ever to get there and save these injured people. This is her fault after all, and she cannot turn her back on this. So Diem pretends to agree with these men, insisting she would never want to do anything to risk the mission, and it was a momentary lapse of judgment, which leads Henry to release his tight grip, though he does still nudge her hard to keep moving away from Lumnos City. Unsurprisingly, Henry is the only one who trusts Diem's words here, though that hard nudge was not unnoticed, Henry. Nicole, I see you definitely noticing that too there. And while they're all tentatively following along with her words, Diem absolutely notices how these men flank the road behind her, blocking the way to Lumnos City. That was not an accident, friends. Brandt, Vance's right hand, offers to carry Diem's bag of medical supplies, acting as if it's a nice gesture because it's gotta be heavy, but really it's to prevent her from having supplies and thus going to the explosion. Taking her chance, Diem bolts and barrels through the men blocking the way behind her. Ah, yes, there's her descended strength working for her again. In order to not get caught by the man, she cuts the bag from her shoulder and keeps running away from the Guardians. Oh, they are going to be so pissed, and Diem knows it. But in this moment, she can't choose the Guardians over her morals. She needs to fix what was her fault in the first place, no matter the cost. Arriving in Lumnos, we've got good news and bad news. Good news, the fire is not coming from the palace. That would have been the worst case scenario, with the most casualties and many of them children. But the bad news, it was the Bennett Armory. Oh, and more bad news, Diem does not have her bag or any supplies after she had to ditch it, only her 2 hands, plus some weapons, which is unfortunately not going to be the most medically helpful, though our girl will end up working with what she's got. And even more bad news, no other healers are here, and even if they did come, they would have been told to turn around. It's just Diem and her 2 hands! getting refused entry into the perimeter, where guards hold the line with a thick rope of glowing pale blue light. The armory is almost destroyed from the explosions, and what's left has the flames spreading quickly. A group of Descended are going into the building to try to save more people trapped in there, but they keep coming out empty-handed. Diem won't back down, though. She can't. She's too scared to go back on the road she came from where the Guardians were. I know there's so much going on right now, but that was a really scary incident for her, as it would be for anyone, and she recognizes how angry she has made them, and she certainly doesn't trust their rationale when they confront her. She's more scared to be there than she is to be here with a Descended with a burning building.
Continuing to get denied entry, Diem locks eyes with a certain princess. And there's something extra harsh in his expression that Diem recognizes is suspicion. Now, let's be real. Him being suspicious of her is so very fair. I get it. Number one, he knows she's working with the Guardians. He saw her go in and out of meetings. Number two, she's the daughter of Orly, who Luther already knows was working directly with the Guardians and he was working with reluctantly. And number three, think of the last time he saw her. She was running away from him to obviously try and find something within the palace. And then when he came looking for her, she didn't come out, even though she was definitely noticeable behind the pillar. And it ended up with him basically kicking her out of the palace, her clearly having broken his trust in her. If he wasn't suspicious of her, that she was behind these attacks in some way, I would be shocked. And she technically is behind the attacks, but maybe not in the way that he thinks so. But that suspicion is outweighed by him seeing just how badly it is that she wants to help. I think that when he sees that she's willing to call him an arrogant prick, she's frantic in order to get to the scene, his suspicions of her, being directly behind the attack, they definitely dissipate.
Like Lily said, he trusts her because she's mean to him. But then the way she begs him to help, even alluding to her involvement by saying she made a mistake, Luther can sense her sincerity, though, and lets her through the magic light line.
Now, there are moments throughout Glow specifically as they get closer together that Diem can kind of sense his emotions through his aura. I wonder if this is a moment where he can sense her emotions through her own aura as well. Ooh. I will get into what else I think that might mean later. I think his suspicion of her goes completely away when he hears that she was attacked on the road, because he automatically, I believe at least, thinks that the people who attacked her were the men who did this.
Well, and he's not wrong. But he does ask, were they mortal or descended?
Yep.
And he knows that it was the Guardians. And so it's like, were they mortal or descended? And she's like, I don't know. And of course she does.
Oh, yeah. But
I can understand why she didn't. Because I can too.
Yeah. It's exactly why Henry didn't want her to go. If she had said mortal and just blurted it out, that would have been, it's already a neon sign, but it would have been even more of a neon sign.
Finally in a position to help the wounded, Diem works with what she has. And oh dear, these injuries are bad. They were in an explosion and are terribly burned. Some limbs are gone, even some lips. I won't go into detail, you get the idea. And you also get the idea of how the words, "this is my fault," keep echoing in Diem's thoughts. She is drowning in her guilt now that she physically sees the damage she has indirectly done to these people who were just doing their jobs on guard at the armory. This is the very last thing she, a healer who holds helping instead of harming in the highest regard, would ever want. Like when she was unable to stop Ron from killing the mother and child, and it was a wake-up call against the Descended. Now she is getting this violence from the other end of the spectrum, and she is disgusted with her own choices that led to this, especially when she'll look upon the burned woman who died from the explosion. So all Diem can do now is sit with the victims, going from Descended to offer them comfort and assurances and ease their terror. Thanks to Luther, she's also able to clean some wounds with fresh water and alcohol. It's not much at all, but it's something. Anything that can help.
It's so sadly ironic because she has the Fortos magic, the healing magic, to fix this situation, which I do wonder if that's one of many reasons that Luther keeps looking over at her, is to kind of make sure he's not crazy, because he saw what she did with Lily.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. I guess I assumed it was him seeing her good heart and that he's falling in love with on display.
Oh, absolutely.
And she intrigues him, you know?
Oh, that's 100% also some part of it.
Of course.
He's a complicated boy.
Oof, yeah, I hadn't thought of it in that light for the scene. Diem will think at some point in Heat, I can't remember exactly when, how she's had this healing magic all along and she could have saved so many lives. It's so tough because of course it's not her fault that she hasn't used her healing magic previously. Like right now, she has no way of knowing. I won't even blame Orly for this either because that's Fortos magic and no one could ever have predicted she could have all 9 realms magic. It's a tragic fact with no one to blame.
From chapter 1 of this book, we have seen Diem's moral compass always pointing towards heal, not harm. And through her anger, she believed that she could have what it takes to shake up that belief and harm those she believes are deserving. But these descended do not qualify as deserving. They were just doing their jobs and they were injured, or in the woman's instance, killed entirely. If this mass destruction that was a direct result of her stealing information, if this is her fault like she believes it to be, then she must be the one to go in and save the remainder of the victims or die trying. Because in her eyes, this is just a sliver of a way that she could right that moral compass again. With the death of this innocent being her last straw, Diem knows she will need to do more to clear her conscience. So she goes up to Luther and his guards and tells them that she will be the one to go in and get the last people who are trapped within the burning building. She is feeling guilty beyond measure. Yes, she is one of the only ones who can fit inside the opening with her smaller frame in comparison to the tall descendant. Yes, but this is also very much in Diem's character. She is always someone to run into the fight. She did this last episode with the man we come to learn as Ron when he threatened the screaming mother and child. She will do this a million times over, much to Luther's dismay.
Diem's determination to save innocent lives, and really to save any life, is one of her biggest strengths and profound qualities as an FMC. She is courageous in the face of peril and will always be the first to charge into danger, whether she's mortal or descended. It's in her nature. It's who she has always been and how she was raised by Orly and Andre Bellator. And it's one of the reasons we love her character and have been so excited for this deep dive. She's flawed and makes mistakes, but at the end of the day, Diem has a good heart and intentions, and her morals mean everything to her. Her struggle is that her morals point in opposite directions in the current Amarian climate, and so starts her agonizing and self-deprecating cycle of doing the right thing for one side only for it to hurt the other. And then she tries to do the right thing for that side, which of course then hurts the other. Diem fights against the oppressors by getting intel on the descended weapons, which leads to an explosion. The explosion causes her to run to help and heal, which makes the Guardians not trust her anymore. And then we'll see the consequences of that mistrust and how she tries to fix it in Glow.
And we'll talk about this never-ending cycle and the, I think, hero complex that comes along with it, especially as we get more into Heat. But for right now, she believes herself quite invincible and will continue to do so. And honestly, I can see why. She's been a descendant in a mortal life for so long. She's always been stronger, better, and unable to cut herself for the most part. Any injuries she had would heal right away. She wouldn't get hurt as easily.
She's not aware of this, but
no,
it's like she
not.
subconsciously has that invincibility.
Yes. Because, like, okay, so let's say, for instance, her and Teller are climbing a tree. Both her and Teller fall out of said tree. She is always going to be the one who is much more okay. And over time, that would concoct into a belief system of, yeah, I'm pretty badass. I can do whatever I want. So it makes sense that she believes the same rules would apply here, even subconsciously.
Diem uses her mortal angle to her advantage in convincing Luther to let her go into the building. Why should he care if a mortal dies in this dangerous mission? They're disposable to the descended after all. Well, that's true for some descended. We know for a fact that's not the case with Luther.
Especially with this, air quotes, mortal. Surrounding Diem and Luther are 2 other descended, though. A slim, stern-faced woman with a midnight blue chin-length bob, and a bison of a man with messy golden waves with a frown that doesn't seem to quite match his face. Hello, Alix and Taryn! Hearing this mortal declare that she is going to go run into a burning building for a bunch of descended naturally stuns them. Luther immediately, obviously, shuts this down. What I would give to hear his internal monologue and just the sound of the protect her, protect her, protect her voice in the back of his head. But as Diem fights back, using her, you're willing to send in your guards over the last hour, why would you not send in someone who is totally willing? Taryn shoots a look at Luther and then looks back at Diem, and a slow smile creeps up his face. We know from Luther's POV chapter in Spark the Everflame that Taryn has been told about Diem. He just doesn't really realize that in this moment that this is the same woman who Luther told him saved Lily. We also know that around a month ago-ish, Luther has broken things off with Ileana. So I wonder if Taryn is smiling because he's like, oh shit, it looks like things were broken off for more than one reason. Meanwhile, Alix doesn't give a flying fuck about this romance drama. She is always so focused on the mission at hand and not allowing everyone else's love lives to cloud her judgment. So she admits that sending in Diem would actually work. If Diem is able to bring the survivors to the opening, the strong descendant could push up the beams for long enough to get the victims out. I love Alix's completely unprejudiced manner. She treats Diem like a normal person. She doesn't see mortal and descended. We see this with how she looks at Andre as such a role model. Oh God, I love her. But even with Alix's practical planning, Luther is still not having it. His single focus is protect her, protect her, protect her. He's ridiculously attracted to her. Yeah, he is. And he also believes that she was sent by Mother Lumnos. So he is literally protecting her so that she can fulfill whatever Mother Lumnos has in store. But when Diem twists the knife of, quote, you're really going to tell their families you had the chance to save them and you didn't take it, that's the kind of leader you're going to be? Well, I guess that's gonna do it. There are going to be so many times, and specifically in that first section of Heat, where Diem and Luther's priorities are very different in battles. His priorities are always focused on her safety and survival, while hers are focused on saving as many people as possible because that's the type of leader she will be. And it takes Luther a while to be okay with this choice that she has around it.
Well, and it's not just protect everybody, it's protect everybody on the other side, too.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm trying to protect you from these people. And she's like, don't kill them!
I know. But today, he's definitely not with her on this. So he relents and he says, quote, fine, get yourself killed.
I think, too, deep down, he is having to convince himself that, okay, this is a test from Mother Lumnos. Yeah. Will this woman survive and lead us into a new age?
Or will she die and I'm looking out for another gray-eyed person?
Yes, exactly. Inside the burning building, Diem goes, and it's getting hot in here, so keep your clothes on because they're going to burn. That didn't work out like I wanted it to. Anyway, it's hotter than the surface of the sun in here. With air so thick, she feels like she's wading through liquid warmth. Diem is calling out, hello, in hopes that survivors will answer her. But there's only silence. On her hands and knees, she goes down the path the woman, Alix, described to get to the area of the armory where there are people still trapped. And in a giant storeroom marked Blades, the shelves and crates are strangely empty, like Nicole was saying earlier. Ah, yes, the Guardians cleaned it out, and that's what was in those carts they had on the road. While Diem does find several bodies here, unfortunately, they are dead, with 2 of the 3 straight up murdered with a slit throat and another beheaded. I'm curious how the whole mission went down. Did the Guardians plant the bombs, then invade this room of the armory, and were quiet enough not to raise the alarm, then left, and that's when they detonated the bombs? Or maybe they had like a bomb or 2 go off at first in another part of the armory, which distracted everyone else, and they were able to sleep in here and kill the guards in this room to retrieve all their weapons?
All right. I have to ask, do you think that Henry knew about and/or committed at least one of these murders? Because I think he did.
Fuck.
Not because I have it out for Henry right now, but because I genuinely believe he was so hyped up with the rest of his dude bros that it was seen as this is for the greater good.
Yeah, there were 6 men who all feel that way very strongly. So maybe Henry was just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anyways.
It matters in my mind. How much blood is on your hands, boy?
Whatever the case, Diem is horrified by these murders. Total in 4, with the woman outside the building and these 3 in here. The act of killing seemed so easy back when she was defending the mother and child from Ron. She was fueled with rage and a need for justice. But here, no matter what kind of descendant these individuals were, they are now dead because they were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Diem joined the Guardians because she was ready to fight against the descended. But the caveat that she's now realizing is that she wanted to fight against those who outright deserved this fate. Vance, Henry, and many others believe that because these armory guards were descended, that's reason enough for them to deserve this fate. But Diem doesn't think that way. She seeks to protect the innocent, and she's understanding kind of in real time that apparently that includes the descended too.
Well, and I think we saw her try to have this type of black and white thinking, where it's like you're descended equals you're bad. When her and Moira are going into the palace to treat the king, we see Diem have this very flippant attitude about, talking down about Luther and all of this different kind of stuff. And it just showed that she was really, really trying because she truly believed she could have that type of mindset around it. But when the armory exploded, that mindset just went straight out the window and she went right back to her true morals.
Yeah, well, or even when she shared the secret location. And
that's another point.
That shame. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what have I done? Like, there's no takebacks here. She's not ready to wage war that requires this kind of killing. This is going on the offense when Diem's more of a defense person, which is ironic. Don't know if that's the right word, but let's call it ironic with how she doesn't feel like being a healer is enough because it's reactionary. This reveals how caught in the middle Diem is of these opposing ideologies. She wants to be on the offense to protect her people, but never at the expense of this. She knows she'll never be ready for war that, as Andre describes, is, quote, death and misery and sacrifice. War is making choices that will haunt you for the rest of your days.
So with the consequences of her actions engulfing her in flames, literally, Diem collapses to the floor beside the dead guards, and the weight of the entire building seems to be on her shoulders. Her life felt so purposeful months ago, but now everything is hazy, dark, and would be laden with having to live with this guilt. She knows she has to give up her job as a healer. She can't look other patients in the eye knowing she caused so many deaths, completely breaking her vow. Her perseverance to find her mother seems wasted on the fact that she is most likely dead. She's not, but I understand why she thinks that way. After her run-in on the road, her relationship with Henry seems like it's going to be forever changed. And if there was some universe in which it hadn't, the Guardians would force him to choose between her and them. And we all know what that choice would be. And besides, she feels like Henry could move on from her. He will. The healers would be safer without her. And she believes her family would be better off without her putting them at risk so often like she did last episode. Quote, maybe that was exactly what I deserved. This is Diem Bellator's true rock bottom. Everything she's held dear, everything that gave her purpose or drive has come crashing down. So why shouldn't she crash down with it? So, with the smoky air replacing any oxygen she had left, Diem surrenders to the darkness.
But then that damn voice comes back. Fight! Diem doesn't want to, okay? Fight! No, she's made her choice and doesn't feel like there's any point in fighting. Fight!
While Diem slowly realizes she's not dying, a certain magic is activated and energy blasts through her.
Her godhead is like, too bad, let's fucking go!
Diem's skin gets icy pulses, the steam of the heat sizzling off her skin. Montios magic activate! But it will be hundreds of pages before Diem realizes that she not only has Lumnos magic, but all the realm's magic, at least the one she's been to.
It might even be 1,000 pages.
It might be closer to 1,000. But right now, Diem is literally using it. Now, I would be so curious what the scene would have been like if Diem had already been to Igneos and thus already had fire magic. But we don't know that yet, and Diem is way too into Lululand to even comprehend it.
And she's able to take a deep breath of air, surprised that her lungs are clear and unscathed, in a building on fire with thick smoke that can suffocate a person. And her brain still feels smoke-fogged and disoriented. That is not descended magic. That is not any other kind of magic. That is her uniqueness shining through there.
That is her literally being indestructible as highly kindred is what I think that is. She believes that this moment, it's the final straw. It only took 2 months of her off the flame route and all the hallucinations to have fully transformed into her losing her mind right here and there. Which, again, I'm not going to give this a Delulu rating, but to be honest, if we were to, I would give it a pretty low one because this is like incomprehensible. And if she has this, weird, unexplainable second chance of life, she might as well put it to good use and save some other lives.
And thank goodness she does, because when she heads into the corridor back on the path Alix informed her of, Diem calls out hello one more time. And Perth, my boy, answers. We will get to know Perth as a loyal guard in Glow. Oh, I just love him so much. Diem follows the voice to a room off the main corridor and finds two guards in there. One is unconscious and the other, who we will later learn is Perth, is trapped beneath a fallen beam. Quick note before Diem saves the day. There's a line as she's searching for survivors, quote, as if the gods themselves were listening. Do you think the gods are indeed listening? Because I wonder, is it only her godhood that is telling her to fight? Or is it like the ancient kindred within her, or the kindred that are linked to, I'll call it activating her godhood? Or is that only reserved for when she becomes crown? We will see several instances of divine intervention, and I'm going to assume this is one of them, at least with the beam, maybe not the godhood.
I do think the gods are not only listening, but I don't think that this is just the gods like the kindred. I wonder truly if Diem is a child of both a kindred and someone descended from the Everflame. I wonder if it's not only the kindred, but also the old gods who are listening. So there's all kinds of people up in there with the fate.
So you think that they're all having a good old meeting together and okay, let's talk about Diem today.
They're at the conference call. They have the giant screen in front of them. They're seeing what to do with this moment.
The relief of coming upon someone who isn't just alive, but also conscious is a metaphorical breath of fresh air. Diem can still save a few people from certain death. She can at least make this right. So she channels her sheer determination and is very surprisingly, but not at all surprisingly, able to lift this very, very heavy beam, which I think she said at one point is 10 times her weight, and it's trapping Perth. No mortal should be capable of lifting this.
With Perth out from under the log, step one of getting them closer to safety is done. But with Diem unable to carry both men, she and Perth hoist his body on top of an unconscious descended, using him like a stretcher. And with Perth holding on tight to that man, Diem grabs the unconscious man's arms and balls! With all of her might, Diem pulls the two men to the entrance where Luther is waiting for her in a panic. And seeing that she's on her last bit of energy and willpower, he screams that he's coming in for her. Oh, I can only imagine the prayers that he was sending up to Mother Lumnos when she was inside the burning building. His magic slithers across the floor towards her and curls around her ribcage and attempts to yank only her forward, saving only her. This is the most on-brand thing for Luther. But Diem, shockingly, is like, no. So she grabs one of his ropes and alarm, alarm, alarm. The second her hand brushes against his magic. Huh, how interesting. A tingling energy bursts through her body. Yes, this is now the second time this book we have seen her absorb others' magic. Luther pulls the two men out of the collapsing building, and their lives being saved means everything to Diem. Quote, at least for today, I'd saved their lives, and in a way, they'd saved mine too. They saved the version of her that she believed her life to be. Lost, unfixable, tainted. With this victory, she may still have a soul that she cherishes and with the values that she holds dear. Maybe her life isn't as lost as she believed it to be.
As Luther strides into the building to help Diem, their eyes lock and they are thrown into a vision with an ancient primal force passing between them. Diem describes this force as, quote, not of this world, but entirely woven within it. It warmed my blood with a calming peace I'd never known, yet filled me with the terrible dread of a fate I could not avoid. This feels so kindred coded, especially with that not of this world, but woven within it. That's like forging magic right there. And then the terrible dread of a fate. I just love this writing so much. This is also the same vision Diem had back when she was eavesdropping on the Guardians and Fortos, though this time it has a little more detail, and there's that strange connection, this force between her and Luther. In her vision, Diem is standing on the same bloody, drenched battlefield with silver flames, and she's surrounded by a circle of dead bodies. She's wearing the glittering onyx armor and carrying a gilded night black blade in her hand, but this time, Diem is not alone, and the shadowed figure from her previous vision is now visible, quote, as if he'd thrown off a great cloak of darkness. This figure is standing in front of Diem with his jeweled sword in hand, dripping blood. When Diem makes eye contact with a familiar set of eyes, the most beautiful, heart-wrenching ache burns against the left side of her chest, like where her heart is, and both she and the figure simultaneously reach up to cover that spot on their palms. And there's the vision. There you have it.
Oh my God, there's so much here. Okay, number one, if you, like me, were curious about this silver fire, aka why is it silver? We know that Diem's skin glows silver when she's using Fortos healing magic, and then things flash with a silver light when she's using her Fortos killing magic. But that's light, not fire. So in this vision, could this silver fire be, I'll call it leftover from her bursting with Fortos killing magic, and that's why everyone is dead?
I thought that Fortos killing magic is decaying from the inside, and the silver light is specific to Diem and being the daughter of the Forgotten. But you are right, though. The silver light does appear often when she's using Fortos magic, both healing and the death type.
Because of the wording difference there, I'm going to actually kind of put that one to the side because I think you're right. I think there are two separate things there. I think that this silver fire is actually something else entirely. We know that all the Gryverns breathe fire in the colors of their descended lands. So Sarai has blue flames, the Montios Gryvern was lavender, Umbros is black flame, etc., etc. Silver is another word for gray. So what if these flames are actually from Ophiuchai's Gryvern, and that's why they're gray? Now, in the battle at Sophos, I just searched everywhere in these chapters, and it could not find anywhere where Ophiuchai's Gryvern's fire was stated. It's only called Dragon Fire, spelled with a Y, and Pale Flames. But it would also mean, if this is Ophiuchai's Gryvern's fire, it would mean that his Gryvern is, and thus Ophiuchai, is responsible for all the bodies on the ground, which feels right that it was Ophiuchai and not Diem.
Yes, I'm leaning toward this, or even that the silver fire is straight up from Ophiuchai himself.
Yes, exactly. Number two, in this vision, she is wearing the glittering onyx armor. Yes, this is the armor made of Godstone that by the end of Heat of the Everflame, Elix is working on for their army. Number three, Diem is holding a night black blade. We will later see this blade in Sophos. Along the blade are words written in a language that Diem does not recognize. And apparently it belonged to the Kindred. I cannot wait for more on this. Number one, I 1000% believe that this language written along the blade is the language of the homeworld of the Kindred.
Yeah!
But question, which Kindred do you think owned this blade?
I'm wondering if it was Omnos's blade, and the fact that it was his is lost to history. It would make sense that Sopho does have it, since they seem to know the most about the tale of Omnos.
Yeah.
And that's why it will feel all warm and fuzzy for Diem when she holds it for the first time. Like how her godhood recognized Omnos' name in a way it doesn't with the other Kindred. I just really think that it's his. Yeah. So do we think this night black blade is made of Godstone?
I don't think so.
Maybe it's another material that can actually kill the Kindred. We know, for instance, that Godstone cannot. Because Black Knight sounds like Godstone minus the glittering.
I'm with you on that one. I think it's something, maybe like a branch of Godstone, or Godstone is a branch of this type of metal.
Ooh, it's like it's opposite, where
yes,
it can kill the Kindred while the other one can't.
Yes, exactly. And next, oh my God, I have been waiting for this. Number 4, looking at the shadowed figure with a jeweled sword. This can be none other than Lord Luther Corbois, Prince of Lumnos. These two lock eyes and quote, "The most beautiful, heart-wrenching ache burned against the left side of my chest, right over her heart." She puts her palm over the ache, and Luther mimics the movement so much here. We know that mating marks are created after you and your mate cut yourself, and the bond is created along with the mark over where you bled. In the library in Sophos, Luther accidentally cut himself with an apple knife right over his heart as they were talking about their future together. And he goes all mushy-gushy looking in his face. Quote, "His eyes were aglow, but not with his usual luminous light. Something warmer. Diem then is stabbed at the end of Heat in the heart right after thinking about her love for Luther and her wish to have him as her mate. And she's curious because this feeling feels warm. Quote, there was an unexpected pleasure in it too, kinky. A particular rightness, a feeling that I just gained something I desperately wanted. And when you touch your mating mark, it pulses with a soft, warm glow. This is them touching their mating marks that they now have at the end of Heat of the Everflame. We do not have this for certain, but I am so convinced. Just like not. This is also why I think the space over Luther's heart was not scarred after the attack from Remus, despite it being in the direct line of this huge scar that goes up his body. Mother Lumnos knew he needed that place saved for his mating mark with Diem. I am a puddle!
I do wonder what caused the vision to happen right here and now between them. Going back to Diem wondering if the gods are listening, could this be from Mother Lumnos? Like, I'm so curious about the rhyme and reason to these visions, especially the shared ones.
I wonder if it was a little bit of like, you have a bigger purpose to play. Trust him.
Yes.
You have a bigger purpose. So I think it was a message of don't give up yet. There's more happening in the back end that you can even know.
So going back to when Diem first got her vision, when she was first learning about the Guardians, I wonder if that was also very much on purpose as well, with her kind of learning about this other force here and her kind of seeing where her future lies.
Well, because if she'd never learned about the Guardians, she never would have been in this situation in the first place. As dark as it is, it was this butterfly effect. So I feel like Lumnos is it's almost her sending these visions as a nudge. You're going in the right direction.
Yes.
As the vision disappears, Diem and Luther still hold the position, each of them laying their palms flat over their chests, enamored by the vision they both saw. And then crack! A massive beam finally gives out and the rest of the roof along with it. And the whole world goes dark.
Diem wakes up the next morning with distant memories from what happened after she fell unconscious when the roof collapsed. Someone, Luther, assured her that she'll survive. This person was begging someone else, Eleanor, to help Diem and that she prefers pants. And then Diem goes unconscious again when Luther asks Eleanor's question about who this woman is to him. Quote, I think she what? She went unconscious again. What? She is the next crown. She was brought to me by Lumnos. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. She is the love of my life. Just kidding. I don't think they're quite there yet. What do you think, Nicole?
I was absolutely, maybe not the love of my life, but like, I could absolutely see something like she was brought to me by Lumnos. I could also see, I think she's my mate.
Through all of this murkiness of consciousness and unconsciousness, there is one thing that stands out, at least to us readers. Luther equals safety, familiarity, and comfort. As he carries her, he feels like a hard, warm wall, and his hands are strong and gentle.
Yeah, they are.
He has a familiar voice that feels like it's intimately ingrained in her, like it's more than a memory. I love that description so much. His bed that she lays in smells like home. You all, the moment that an MMC smells like home, you know where this is going. So this next morning, she wakes up in the palace, in Luther's bed, in fact. His room is so Luther, too. Simple but elegant furnishings that seem unassuming.
Waking up with Luther at her side, something feels very different between them. Last night's roof collapse seemed to have also collapsed the walls normally in place between them. Luther's hair is askew, his eyes are exhausted, his clothing is less formal with wool trousers and an untucked wrinkled shirt unbuttoned partway down his chest. Yummy! He's casual and unpretentious and hot. I am a puddle for this man. Up until this point, we've only seen Luther as Prince Luther, head of the guard, heir to the throne. But this is just Luther, raw and vulnerable. There are few who see this version of him. Lily, Taryn, maybe Alix, but I would wager that Diem is one of 3, if not most 5 people. But the fear of losing her last night might have destroyed any wish for him to keep his walls up, and the hardened, princely look on his face came tumbling down. As the two of them are distracted by a piercing cry from Sarai, talking about the Gryvern and how she seems nervous with the changing of the crown, and her docile nature of preferring preferring treats and naps to training or fighting a fake opponent.
Do you think Sarai is more anxious and nervous because Diem was harmed?
Yes. Oh,
because
I love that.
There is the transitioning of the crown coming later in the day, like literally later this day. But I think she's been fretting all morning due to Diem's condition, and Luther nor anyone else knows better right now.
Oh, I love that. I love that a lot. Yes. This is when Diem compares herself to this creature, saying that they have this trait in common, wanting snacks instead of training. And Luther laughs, unabashedly laughs. He's relaxed. He has almost a lazy posture to him. Previous to last night, we can assume that Luther was starting to doubt the trust he had put in this woman who, was believed to be a messenger from Lumnos herself. But after Diem's choices, no matter how terrifying they were to him in the moment, I think he too realized that no, she is exactly the person that Lumnos promised would come. And it caused him to feel this ease with her.
Despite running into a burning building and having the roof collapse literally on her to the point her clothes were destroyed and Luther was so terrified for her life, Diem seems completely healed. Sure, her body feels like it has a hangover, but nothing more. What? No wounds, no swelling, no nothing but soreness and a stiff neck after everything that happened last night?
All right, pause. Because the way he says that quote, the armory collapsed and you were ... knocked unconscious. It feels like we should have our antennas up here. The whole flaming roof fell on her head and she lived to tell the tale. Something that probably would have killed the other descendant and she was just knocked unconscious. Is he trying to soften the blow here because she was so much worse? Or is he completely stumped because, she was just knocked unconscious and not completely dead? Or was he so terrified that he thought he was losing her, so he's saying knocked unconscious so he doesn't have to relive those horrors too?
D, all of the above.
D for Diem, all of the above. But oh, Diem. With realizing she's completely healed after a fucking burning roof collapsed on top of her, can we say that enough? It is our job as podcasters to play our favorite game. How Delulu is Diem. Like I mentioned, something that would have severely injured other descended, if not killed other descended, can I say that enough in this episode, leaves her feeling next day like she's no worse than a night of hard drinking. Keep in mind she's 20, so a night of hard drinking that you might have done at 20 and how you felt the next day. Think about that. Spoilers, it's a hell of a lot better than 30s. I had a limoncello. That was it. I had a limoncello when I was over at my husband's family's house, and I felt like I was hit by a bus the next day. A limoncello is this big. Because
it's got like some sugar in it.
Maybe.
But yes, your point stands.
Yes. Normally on the show, we would give Diem a pass for, her more than normal descended powers when they come into play, because those types of things should be impossible. So it makes sense that she's like, what?
And yes, listeners, we have heard you that we have been very, very soft on Diem with our ratings.
But I'm so sorry, Diem. That excuse does not cut it when a fucking building crashes on top of you and you just have a stiff neck like you gave too hard of a blowjob last night. This is my first 5 that you get on the Delulu Diem scale. She even has the most powerful descendant in the realm looking at her like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yep, I have been saving this 5. It's not just for her being completely healed after all of that and feeling the, quote, invasion of unwanted suspicions threatening to break through my carefully constructed walls. In other words, she knows, but she's trying so hard not to even let it slip into her mind. This 5 is also because she got that tingling sensation again while in the burning building, and suddenly she wasn't feeling the inferno around her and her lungs were better. She had super strength to lift the beam and drag 2 guards to safety. Cold bursts go over her body and there's a cloud of steam. Another vision. Her body gets coated in a shimmering silvery sheen when she unknowingly absorbs Luther's magic. There's probably more that I'm forgetting. Add in what happened last episode when she went up against a descendant's magic and healed after a blade sliced her throat, and everything that happened with Ron and his crazy magic. Diem, you have officially run out of excuses and you are in full-blown Delulu land. Before an all-healed Diem leaves the palace, Luther's wondering if she can check on King Ulthar. Yes.
Do you think he's asking because he's like, maybe seeing the king himself will give her something? Or do you think he's actually asking for the king?
I think actually asking for the king because he's deteriorating so much
true.
and they're really worried about him. Yeah.
That's true.
And upon seeing him for this quick check she reluctantly agreed to, Diem will note that up close she can see just how much his condition has deteriorated since she saw him over 3 weeks ago. It's almost his time to go. We also get a little peek into why Luther is so strict about titles and formalities when he goes to kneel before the peacefully slumbering king. Because Diem's like, he's unconscious. Why are we doing this? But Luther believes there's a purpose to the protocol because it distinguishes between one's public-facing role and the person behind it. Because they are two different people. And while Luther doesn't say this outright, I understand it as when you perform the formality, it sets the tone for the interaction and kind of like which person you're talking to, the role or the person behind it. For a political family like the Courbois, I can absolutely understand why Luther believes this and enforces it, even if Diem feels differently.
Well, and I can also see why Luther would want it because he is someone who has always been treated like the heir presumptive.
Yes.
And he's never been treated like Luther. So if someone comes up to him and does that formal greeting, he's able to know, okay, you're treating me like I'm going to be the next king of Lumnos. But if someone comes up to him and treats him more normal, it would be able for him to be like, oh, okay, this is this person just wanting to hang out with me as Luther. But he never gets that because even in those normal reactions, he is still having to realize everyone wants to treat him to get something from him.
Exactly.
With Luther's demeanor today seeming to be made out of glass rather than its normal steel, Diem chooses to ask some questions to the prince about his relationship with the king. Not because she wants the information to use it against him, and especially not for the guardians to know, but instead simply because she sees a nephew sad at the soon-to-be death of his uncle.
And they're sitting on opposite sides of Ulthar, and Diem places her hand over Luther's as it rests on the king's chest. They're gonna hold hands over the king of Lumnos.
And Luther obliges to her questions, sharing that his father and his uncle were quite close. Luther even was named in Ulthar's honor, with the 2 first letters just literally being switched. But from a very young age, Ulthar became more of a father figure than Luther's own father, Remus, the king's regent. And through that bond, a wedge was created in the family. Think about Remus and his motives. He does whatever it takes to be in power. He's always craving more of it for his own gain and no one else's. Seeing his son, a bastard and a half-mortal, to be treated with more care and preparing him to be king with this super extra power, yeah, it makes sense in his character that would absolutely wear on Remus's nerves.
But doesn't Remus see a vision that his son will be the king of Lumnos, and that's why he was so insistent on keeping his half-mortal son alive in the first place?
I think that yes, and I think that that even could be clouded by seeing it in action when he actually sees Luther starting to get more attention, Luther starting to get more respect, and Remus would almost put himself in comparison to Luther.
I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I think maybe we're saying the same thing here with Ulthar kind of taking Luther under his wing, and it's almost like Remus has been pushed aside.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
when he is now pushed aside and in the shadows, doesn't matter who he is to the king, there's a wedge now between him and the power that he wants, and the power he wants is in Luther.
Well, and especially knowing how he treated Luther as a kid. I can imagine him being nervous knowing that Luther might be king someday and being like, oh, fuck, like I sliced my son open and he's going to be the next king.
We're going to talk so much about the Courbois family next book. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I can't wait. But despite the brotherly feud, it didn't deter Ulthar's treatment of Luther. Quote, he might have been the only person in the realm who had nothing to gain from me, and yet he showed me more kindness than any person ever has. Oh, Luther. Later, in Luther's POV chapter in Spark, we learn that after Ulthar's mate died, this mentorship to Luther became a purpose-giving light for Ulthar in his grief. Being presumed the most powerful in the realm, it left Luther constantly having to wonder if someone's kindness towards him was genuine, or if they were wanting their own gain. We will see this in a large scale with Ileana. Does she really love Luther? I personally don't think so. Did she love the idea of him, what he could be, the power he had, and who she felt like she could help mold him into? Yes, absolutely. But the true Luther? No. Few people got to see that person. Ulthar is one of them. However, despite of that close relationship, the uncle and nephew did not always see eye to eye. We know that Ulthar passed the progeny laws because of the other houses trying to rid Lumnos of mortals altogether, and Ulthar had to compromise. But Luther has been actively working against those laws for who knows how long. Of course, Diem does not know that yet. But we also have some extra insight, again, from Luther's POV chapter, that some other evils Ulthar had, Luther can never forgive. So I wonder if he's also referring to having a whole house wiped out after his mate was killed, or even other things that we just don't know yet.
You're right, with other things we don't know yet. And Penn has teased that we will learn more about the Courbois family in Bern. So I wonder if we'll get a little bit more insight into his reign.
Oh, I hope so.
And definitely Remus. She has told us that we will learn a lot more about Remus. So, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I can't wait.
When Luther asks Diem if she thinks Ulthar had been a bad king, I think he's genuinely asking for a mortal's perspective. As much as he tries to help the mortals and offer assistance to those in need, Luther does not truly know the mortals' conditions or live in their shoes. There's no way he could. At one point, he admits to Diem that he didn't realize it was this bad in Mortal City, or he would have done more. And in Heat, he admits to Diem that he will never know what it's like to be mortal like her, even if they're both half mortal, because she lived almost all her life as one of the mortals. So here he is wondering, how was Ulthar as a king for someone outside of the descended houses? Because of course they're all smoozing to him, and he might never get the real understanding of what they thought about him as a king. And Diem doesn't exactly have very many nice things to say about him. After all, King Ulthar was responsible for passing the progeny laws. It's interesting how she gets such a contrast of the descended crown that has passed bad laws and is to blame for so many innocent deaths, and the reality of the old dying man before her here. Like Moira said earlier in the book, in the beginning and in the end, mortal and descended are the same. She can both empathize for this dying man right here and feel angry about the injustices he served on the mortals. It's who Diem is, and it's also like her to speak up and use her voice when she gets the ear of the future presumed king of Lumnos.
One of my favorite lines in this whole series is when Diem says, quote, "If the death of innocence is the cost we are willing to pay, then we don't deserve to be powerful."
Yes.
Not only is this going to be one of those lines that just make me go like, this is why Diem is the queen that they need now. But it's also because I love Luther's reaction here. He might not answer, but the light flaring behind his eyes says it all. Just like Diem is seeing the real Luther in this scene, here is Luther seeing the real Diem. He's seen her fight guards. He's seen her threaten to slice off his balls and shove them down his throat. But now he's seeing how, at her core, she does believe in goodness over power. Oh my God, if he didn't already love her, I think that this would have for sure done it.
Yeah. I've always figured he was kind of testing Diem with his line about even if the cost required is to keep our realm powerful, because we know he doesn't actually believe that about with the mortals. And that's when she throws that line that we love so much back at him.
Perhaps believing her normally steel wall is also made of glass today, Luther pries, asking what Diem was really looking for the day she ran around the palace. At her dismissal, he goes on, asking if it was for the Guardians. I don't know what you're talking about, Prince. I don't know what you're saying. But surprise, it's his literal job to know what's going on in this realm. So of course he knows who they are. I love the dig quote. They aren't nearly as covert as they believe themselves to be. So good. It just brings such a smile on my face knowing that Vance and Henry and the like are over here like believing they have the upper hand and they're so clever. And Luther's like, yeah, I fucking know all about them. And even knowing that they were behind the attack last night. On a first read, this is such a what moment, but on a reread, it's like, of course he knew about Auralee and her working with them. He knows Diem is working with them. Remember, he's seen her go in and out of meetings. He believes Diem has taken over Auralee's role because of the mutual connection with the Guardians. Remember, he doesn't know yet that Diem has no clue her mother is a Guardian. He believes she knows. But just like Diem felt when she was hiding from Luther in the hallways, she still doesn't believe she can trust him. And to be honest, I absolutely get it, and I'm Team Diem there. They've had a lovely morning. The walls are down. But what if it's just a ruse to get her to lower her guard so he can get information? Despite her anger with the Guardians and separating herself from their cause, she doesn't feel like giving them up to one of the most dangerous men there is. Fair.
If Luther is playing 20 questions, then so does Diem. But you know what? She only wants one question answered. Where is her mother? This question has been festering in Diem's heart since the day of her mother's disappearance. She has asked herself this question a million times in a million different ways. And here is the one person who she knows has something to do with her mother missing. Just kidding. Diem actually has 2 questions for Luther. What did he do to her mother? Notice how Luther danced around answering her first question? Yep, we will see that also in Glow. Now, we've discussed at length on the podcast about how fair it is that Diem thinks Luther is behind her mother's disappearance. So yeah, totally reasonable for her to ask this direct question. And in hindsight, we know this is as far from Luther as possible. And he's insulted by this assumption, assuring her that whatever Diem thinks happened, like seeing them arguing and orally blackmailing him about some secret, it didn't happen. Diem doesn't settle for vague answers like that, though. With a flashlight directed at his face, what happened to my mother, Luther? I can imagine the internal agony that Luther is going through right now, as we get a glimpse of it with him working his jaw in silence. It's like he wants to give her some relief, because he does know what happened to her mother, and she is away, not dead like Diem dreads. But he also doesn't know how much Diem already knows about her mother, and he made a promise to Orly after all. Oh, we are going to talk about this so much in our Glow Deep Dive.
I remember when Penn was on the intro episode, she made a very clear note that both Henry and Luther are hiding her mother's whereabouts from Diem. And it is just so interesting to see the internal battle and how Luther is dealing with it, and the internal battle and how Henry dealt with it by saying like, oh, the old gods of, I pray, like all the old gods, I know she's okay, da 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 da. He thinks that's enough. And here is Luther literally at war with himself, unable to know. I don't really think, I'm not putting one above the other, because I think honestly both of them are just trying to keep their promises to Orly.
I agree. And I don't think that it's like willy-nilly with Henry at all.
No.
Yeah, I think that it is. Yeah.
He thinks he's giving her as much information as he possibly can to calm down his conscience, in my opinion.
I think he's trying to actually calm Diem and help her out as much as he can.
I think you're right. But lovebirds, this standoff will have to wait, because with a knock at the door, 2 guards enter, pulling away Luther's attention with whispering in his ear. Well, fuck, Luther's got to take this call. And it looks like Luther is willing to give Diem a second or maybe 5th chance at this point. He's going to leave her alone with the king, but under no circumstances is she allowed to leave this room. No running, no fishiness. You got that, Diem? So after giving her multiple chances, this is Luther's, I'll say final test, but I might put that in quotations. Final test for trust with Diem.
The roller coaster that is their relationship is just all over the place in chapters 28 and 29.
I love it.
I do too. As Diem will think when she's fleeing the palace soon, she thought she and Luther were kind of becoming friends. And yet she accuses him of being responsible for her mother's disappearance. But then they have a nice heart-to-heart about Luther and Ulther's complex relationship, as well as who he was as a king. And they hold hands, or place their fingers together, whatever, same thing. They don't know they were holding hands, but they were. And here he is placing his trust in her, moments after she argued with him about where her mother is. Maybe it's not so much a test with her, but he's like considering this Lumnos' test.
Yeah.
Ooh. I guess it's kind of one and the same, though, right? A test for Diem is a test with Lumnos. And also, he probably thinks she's better in here with the king than accompanying him in the palace to attend to whatever the private matters are.
So with the king's chamber's doors slamming shut, she is left with the unconscious King of Lumnos and a knife in her boot. There's a snake in my boot.
Like we've been saying, Diem has been torn between looking at this old man as who he is here right now, someone on his deathbed and, at least in this moment, alone. For a few moments, Diem doesn't even trust herself not to hurt him. She considers removing herself from the king's presence or handing over her weapons so she doesn't feel tempted. I can understand her fear because she has wanted to make him pay for all that he has inflicted upon the mortals. From her perspective, the king certainly deserves to die. But this man here isn't the arbitrary king she's always known about and cursed. This man is fragile and unconscious and nearing his last breaths. And Diem has learned very recently that she has no stomach for murder. There was defending herself and 2 others against Ron and his shadow magic, where she attempted to stab him in the neck. And then there's this, and last night, with people who, in this moment, are not doing anything wrong. So she offers him the compassion Moira has praised her for. Diem gives him comfort while holding her palm against his to match their heartbeats. Another little thing that I just love. She whispers the sacred rite of endings, which is just so poetic. The Descended forbid this rite of endings, which is from the old mortal religion. And here Diem is giving it to the king. Like, wow. Because that's how she knows how to offer comfort when someone is fading to the beyond.
But then, just as the final word from the mortal rite of ending finishes, A crackle of energy shoots between the king and Diem, and with a vice-like grip, his hand clasps onto hers, and his eyes fly open, already locked on hers, and he croaks out, "You finally come. Welcome to the chat, King Ulthur!"
I wonder if he felt her aura and it's made his own godhood wake up.
I like it. But naturally, Diem's like, what the fuck? Ulthur is like, I'm nowhere near done though, saying, quote, "They told me you would come for me." Note the use of the word they. When Yrcel and even the Montios King will share with Diem that they've heard about her from their own direct kindred people, they will have heard about her. They will have heard it through their own direct kindred connections, like Umbros and Montios. But Ulthur says they. So while unconscious, he has been maybe chatting with the whole. He was in the group. He was in the council meeting. He was looking at the
In the conference meeting.
In the conference room. Yes.
Wait, yeah, he zoomed in, right? He just zoomed in.
But he goes on. Quote, "They told me your blood would shatter our stone and lay waste to our borders. We will see this at the end of Glow when Diem's blood breaks the Heartstone at her coronation. Then in Heat, we will see the borders start to break down, no longer keeping the descended magic only within their own realm. But I also have a feeling that these words go beyond the forging magic breaking down. It is entirely possible that Diem ends up queen of all Amarian at the end of next book, depending on, where the rest of the crowns are and if they demise or not. The quote, lay waste to our borders. It might also mean getting rid of the whole separation that divides Amarian and instead creating a whole continent.
Ooh, I love all of that. See, I was thinking that when he makes this reference to her blood shattering on the Heartstone and laying waste to the borders, he was also referring to Diem freeing Ophiuchi, since he is on a mission to lay waste to the borders.
Yep.
And it's like a double meaning with the forging magic between the realms breaking down.
So Ulthur's skin begins to shine bright with an unnatural glow.
Ah, where have we seen that before when powerful kindred magic is at play?
As his Lumnos crown appears above his head, the wispy, shadowing black vines are melded with the twinkling stars. It's so beautiful. And his grip tightens on her. He says, quote, I am not afraid, devourer of crowns, ravager of realms, herald of vengeance!
What a title. Danny from Game of Thrones would just be so impressed with that.
Absolutely. Let's go through it. Number 1, Devourer of Crowns. We're already seeing this by the end of Heat of the Everflame, as Diem collects crowns like they're Pokemon cards. Ravager of Realms. Ravager means a person or thing that works havoc or does damage. So she'll wreak havoc through the realm and damage it. As ominous as it is, I believe it's in a sense of destroying the realm as they currently know it. Almost like it's needing to break down in order to build it back up. Or like you're saying, she'll be part of the butterfly effect that leads to Ophiuchi's, maybe one and the same, his, ravaging of the realms. And last but not least, we have Herald of Vengeance. Herald means a person or thing viewed as a sign that something is about to happen. Like the Blood Sun is a great example. That this bringer of the sign of vengeance. So who is she taking vengeance against?
I wonder if it's Diem taking vengeance out on Amarian as we know it, the superiority of the descended, the violence of the mortals, the selfishness of the crowns.
I love that thinking. I'm also going to throw in the idea that this could be Ophiuchi taking out his revenge on behalf of the kindred themselves, and like the anger that he has from being locked away for so many years.
I also wonder if it's the kindred's vengeance. They are disappointed in how the descended have oppressed the mortals, and that was never the kindred's intention. So Diem is the herald of their vengeance. Gotta break everything down to build it back up. Or if she is Omnos' vengeance, and if that's the case, maybe there's a connection to the kindred's curse. That sounds like it could be connected, right? Vengeance and curse?
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
Then things get really weird, friends. Ulthur's voice abruptly changes and sounds much older and otherworldly. And what? It's a female's voice. Ah, yes, we will learn later that this is Lumnos speaking through Ulthur as he nears the end of his life, much like we'll see with the dying Fortos King in Heat. Lumnos says through King Ulthur, quote, give him our gift, daughter of the forgotten. When the end has come and the blood has spilled, give our gift to my faithful heir and tell him this is my command. We're back to Gift Watch. Apparently we have that now too. And I'll be honest, I think we are missing just a few big puzzle pieces to theorize in any truly rational way, but that's not gonna stop us, so let's break this down. We are strongly assuming, though cannot confirm, this faithful heir, this him that Lumnos is referring to, is Luther. He is her faithful servant. She has already spoken to him in the past, and he would have been heir to the Lumnos crown if it wasn't for Diem, who is not from Lumnos, but rather Omnos. So he kind of is the heir to the Lumnos crown, technically, which leads us right into the reference of Daughter of the Forgotten. Yep, there's this name for Diem again that she's already been called once before by Yourcell, Queen of Umbros, in Chapter 1 months ago on Foraging Day. And it most certainly won't be the last time, even in this book, that Diem is called Daughter of the Forgotten. She is the daughter or descendant of the Forgotten 10th Kindred, who ruled over what is now known as the Forgotten Lands, who was called Omnos, which means all in Latin. All the crowns, all the magic, all the realms. Then we have the line about when the end has come and the blood has been spilled. My only guess is that this is the climax of Burn, the vision that Diem and Luther have seen coming to life, leaving us with Lumnos' command, "Give my faithful heir our gift." I believe that when she says our gift, she is speaking of all the kindred's gift, probably the 9 of them. So what in the world could this gift be that Luther will need when the end has come from more kindred than just Lumnos? I wonder if it's something to do with the Heartstone, because that seems to be at the center of everything revolving around the kindred and their magic and Amarian as a whole. It could be tied to the kindred's curse, though how I'm not quite sure because we still don't know exactly what that is. It might be something that the kindred hid away, maybe around the kindred's temple on Creel, and Diem might find it while she's stuck on the island. Thinking of what we know about gifts in this world so far, there are the Ascension Ball gifts from the other realms, including the compass that Luther already has in his possession by the end of Heat. However, those gifts are from specific realms, not all of the kindred. There is the eye color that Diem has, a gift from her father, as Yourcell says in Chapter 1. The kindred had gray eyes. So maybe somehow Diem has to give Luther her eye color, and that's how they'll have their happily ever after.
I'm so sorry, can we pause for a minute? Because what color are Luther's eyes?
Blue-gray.
Blue-gray.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
So what if he has this all gift as well? He can also tap into all magic, but he hasn't gotten the gift yet.
Oh, and in order to get the gift, he has to, and once when he gets the gift, then he has to activate all of the magic?
Something like that. I don't know. I'm going to noodle on this.
All right, sounds good. Mating bonds are referred to as gifts from the kindred and glow. So maybe this is Lumnos commanding Diem to give Luther her heart. I knew you'd like that one. When the descended pray to their kindred, they give an offering of magic to offer the gifts the kindred bestowed. So is this a gift they've already bestowed? Or is it a new one? I just love trying to figure out these meanings. And yes, I did keyword search all 3 books for the word gift. There's a whole lot, so I'm sure I'm missing more, but luckily this is not the last gift watch. But Diem is freaking out right now, and not in the good way like we are about this nugget of deep dive gold. When Ulther's grip releases her wrist, Diem staggers backward, which causes her to trip over a nearby chair. Then she crashes to the ground, and this sends Breck's blade out of its sheath and onto the stone floor. She grabs it and holds it defensively, and that's when the guards walk in. So here they are, seeing Diem on the ground with a Vertosian steel blade in front of her that she's holding, and she's next to the king. And these guards came running in here because they heard yelling in a struggle. Oh dear. Oh, Diem, this is bad, bad, bad. You kind of really look very guilty that you just tried to kill the king and fell in a struggle. Yes, ma'am, you are in a pickle. Make that a double pickle because Luther is here now too. Yeah, it's another pickle. Now, we know what Diem was actually doing. She was tending to the king before Mother Lumnos channeled through him and gave a message to Diem. She had wondered very briefly about whether she could indeed be trusted in the same room as the king with a blade that could kill him. But she knows, and we know, that she is not capable of murder. This is an old, dying man in her eyes, not someone actively trying to do violent harm to innocents. But we're all in agreement this looks bad. Luther, as High General and person aware of Diem's involvement with the Guardians, who is just listening to her say this king passed bad laws, and then she got rightly mad at Luther about where her mother is, like he'll say soon, he wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't suspicious. Suspicious to the point where he is checking on the king for injuries to ensure Diem is telling the truth that nothing happened. She's insulted, like she had been before when she was accused of being capable of hurting a child. But more than anything, Diem is hurt by his suspicions that she would do such a thing to this old dying man. Her faith in her identity as a healer is already gone. So much so that after the explosions went off and she thought, this is my fault, she'll quit her career as a healer. Here someone else is showing how much they don't believe in her upholding her healer vows. Like, point and simple, that's what he's doing right now. Someone who, loath as she is to admit it, she was beginning to call a friend, and she cares about his opinion of her. And yeah, what she won't admit is that she's attracted to this guy who now thinks so poorly of her and is judging her.
With the sting of Luther's suspicious look kicking her mind into must get out of here now mode, Diem sprints out of the palace, only to hear footsteps chasing after her and Luther's voice calling her back. Everyone, it is time to hold on to your butts! Making it to a secluded pebbled path along the walls of the royal grounds, a hand closes around Diem's wrist and pulls her into his large chest. Diem's hand brings her knife instinctively up to his throat, while the other clutches onto him for dear life for balance, all while Luther's arms are curled around her waist. Diem is still riding the adrenaline from Ulther's mysterious words and being caught in the king's chambers holding a knife. It is causing pure instincts to take over. But the issue here is that her two instincts are at complete war with each other. One side of her is trained to fight. That side brings the Frotosian blade up to Luther's throat, pressing it into him so hard that blood starts to trickle down her hand. And the other is clutching onto the man for dear life, confused by this attraction she can't seem to make sense of.
Ah, friends, here's our romantasy story. Just step aside, Henry, step aside.
Please, my boy. Meanwhile, Luther, he wants to explain. Of course he suspected her, like Lexi mentioned. He would have been stupid not to, and it would have been an insult to her, and he would not dare show her that disrespect.
I gotta love how this was a lose-lose situation for Luther. Diem was insulted that he did suspect her, and she probably would have been a little insulted if he didn't either. Yep. Story of Luther's life.
I know. In Luther's Spark bonus chapter, we get a little bit more insight into what's flying through this beautiful mind of his. He wonders if this intense draw to her is lust for the woman, if it's madness for how badly he craves her, or, quote, perhaps with the king dying and a life bound for duty quickly closing in, I'd seized on the first thing I truly wanted for myself in as long as I could remember. And despite a million words unspoken and Diem's knife against his throat, the two are panting together. Each breath, their bodies are moving in closer and closer. Diem threatens to take his life, asking him why she shouldn't just rid herself of him right now with the swipe of her hand.
I think Diem has proved she is not capable of this, but, you know, she still is feeling very threatened by this man.
Exactly.
And his response is so poetic. He doesn't fear death. Every breath he draws is as much a curse as a gift, because of feeling trapped in obligation, and he's been on borrowed time for longer than she can imagine. Which, yes, he was saved from certain death by Lumnos when he was a child, and he's been waiting for her, the leader for him to follow. So if she is the way his fate catches up, at least he got to meet her. So what a beautiful end it would be.
And if her hand is to be his demise, he asks for only one favor, and one favor only! Quote, let me die with the taste of you on my lips. And they fuck! No, sorry, not yet. They kiss! Lips colliding, her dagger dropping. These two are completely lost in one another. Luther has been lusting after this girl for over a month now, knowing before he even met her that she would change his life forever, but not having any clue just how much he would be attracted and drawn to her. Meanwhile, Diem, who has been completely confused by the unpracticality of their connection, feeling completely out of control by her pull to him. She is automatically not someone who thinks about love, just in general. She thinks about relationships in a very practical way, asking herself the question, does it make sense? Yes or no? But there's no sense to Luther. No practicality, no control, no reason behind why her mind goes blank as his hardness rubs up against her, and quote, that scared me even more than a blade to the throat. Every sentence in this kiss scene is the embodiment of exactly what she wanted from Henry on the road to Four Toes. I can't believe I'm bringing up Henry in this perfect moment. She wanted raw, battle, burning. There's even lines in the scene comparing Luther to an inferno. This is the opposite in every which way from the careful softness that was Henry Albanon. And the words her father said at dinner come to the forefront of her brain. Quote, "The truth is that I just knew." I'm so happy!
I just love this little tidbit so much because Diem is always leaning on her father's advice when she has to fight or be strategic in cornered situations. And right now, she's like telling herself that's the kind of situation she's in. But her heart already knows that's not what this is. Andre's only advice that she can think of in this moment is about love. Penn, you are the queen of writing a slow burn romance. I love it!
Me too.
I think we said this during our intro episode with Penn, but this kiss scene was not in the original book. It was a very last-minute addition right before Penn sent out her arcs because she did receive some feedback that at least a little bit of spice might be nice for this slow burn of all slow burns. And turns out this kiss is many readers' favorite scene in Spark of the Everflame. But these two aren't done yet. Diem puts her walls up because what the fuck, she should not be kissing a descendant and especially not be liking it.
Liking it a lot.
By the way, can we notice how not once here is she thinking about Henry? Like, not once does she even mention, like, oh, I should probably be thinking of Henry. Nope, nothing whatsoever.
I give you the plot of Glow of the Everflame.
But even there, like, she's like, no, I'm an engaged woman. Like, what about Henry? And then she's just like, who?
Wait until the massage scene.
Oh, gosh, yes. So she goes on the offensive, accusing Luther of just wanting action, and she does not work on Paradise Row. Quote, "He couldn't have looked more disgusted if he'd tried. After all, they barely know each other. Luther is practically a stranger to her, so what does she know he wants? Oh, Diem, darling, you know what he wants." Luther comes back with one of my personal favorite quotes that I have memorized. "The only person you're good at lying to is yourself."
If that doesn't tell you where our priorities are, listeners, I truly don't know what will.
I can be romantic. If you doubt me, just go listen to our Silver Flames coverage, okay? That was where I had my book boyfriend.
That's true.
This quote that I really like about how she's the only one who's good at lying to herself, it sounds like Luther's been playing How Delulu is Diem too. Actually, let's be honest. Diem's been playing the game too. She just knows that she's been Delulu as well.
She's just been rating herself at like a 0.5 or lower every single time.
Speaking of Delulu Diem, Luther's magical aura is reaching out to Diem. It's caressing her and causing that voice within her to, what, Nicole? Luther speaks the truth out loud. He can feel her magic too. We'll find out just how strong her aura is and how Luther has been able to feel it since soon after she got off the flame route. But at first, he thought it was someone else, like a descended preteen coming into their magic. Then he realized that every time Diem was at the palace, the aura intensified, and he quickly put two and two together that it's coming from her. And the only reason she can feel his power, which she's been feeling since her first trip to heal Lily, is because she is also a powerful descended. So here he is, not accusing her of being a descended because of her eyes, like she's honestly gotten for the past 10 years. He's calling out that she can feel his magic, and he can feel hers. His magic is pulled to her, and hers to his. She's no more mortal than he is. And oh my goodness, I love the significance behind that fact he gives, because he is half mortal, half descended too. They're the same amount of mortal. So what? Is Diem refusing to admit she's descended because of the progeny laws? No. He's wrong. He has to be wrong. Like, this is just not even an option. Luther, at this point, is more so convinced that she knows she is half mortal, but has such a hard exterior that she won't let the truth be exposed at all. It's not until Glow that he'll learn the truth, that Diem really does believe she has been only immortal all her life. And yes, we've discussed a lot about how she has had superstitions, but she pushes them so far down and refuses to acknowledge. Because acknowledging even the slimmest possibility that maybe she is half mortal would unravel her entire life, and she'd have to come to terms with the fact she has been lied to her whole life by her beloved mother. Before Diem leaves the palace, just a few more things Luther wants to say. Number one, he won't enforce her mother's bargain and tell her can stay in school. That weight of responsibility that Diem has been feeling since kind of the beginning of the book, it's been lifted. So that's good. Number two, he wants Diem to be the palace healer. I assume so Luther can keep seeing her. But alas, Diem says for the first time out loud that she's going to quit being a healer. And number three, she saw the vision too, right? Quote, What if our story isn't over, DM Bellator? What if it's only beginning? And right after he says that, just like in the dream, she feels an ache on the left side of her chest. Is that foreshadowing for her future mating mark right as he says their story is just beginning? Like in this moment, Mother Lumnos is kind of like nudging things along a little bit, maybe?
Oh, Mother Lumnos is in full matchmaker mode right now. She's like, come on, kids, work it out. Oh, Lumnos.
In return, DM can right one wrong of hers. She tells Luther about the hidden entrance to the palace and insists he get it repaired today. What's not said is before the Guardians attack again. Amidst everything else going on and her life feeling turned upside down, I know this doesn't feel like a weight off her shoulders, but now at least she'll be able to ease her mind, no longer having to wait for the Guardians to take action on that front. She's able to do something proactively good to prevent innocent lives lost. Doesn't matter if it's for the descended. DM has drawn the line in the sand now. Save innocence, period. In this magic-fueled segment of the episode, let's tap into our Umbros magic and turn our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book and series, including speculations for Book 4, Burn of the Everflame. DM thinks about how she's been jealous of Lana because she's the kind of pretty girl who captures men's attention. She's the exact type of girl DM has noted Henry has shown interest in the past, and they will fall in love, and Lana will fight for her man against DM, who will not be jealous in the slightest anymore, even though she is right now. For different reasons, but yes, you all get my
She's
point.
like, I got that Luther dick. I don't need the Henry
I
dick
know,
anymore.
right?
I'm good.
So much foreshadowing for Lily and Teller's romance, and also the sadness that it causes specifically for Teller, because he knows that they can never be truly together because he's immortal, and he thinks at the end of the day, she deserves better. Like when DM is teasing him about Lily at the family dinner table, and he gives her a look with a sad, defeated heaviness to it. DM can't consciously imagine liking a descendant, so she isn't being very sensitive to the very real heartache that such a relationship would cause. DM thinks she's catching Luther in a trap. To forbid me would be to prioritize a mortal over his own kind, a display of weakness the future king of Lumnos couldn't risk. Well, DM, when you become queen, you will fight hard for the mortals, as you should, and certainly come off as weak to the other descended. But luckily, then we'll have the challenging, and then it'll all go sideways again.
This is more of a question, but we get multiple instances of quote, as if he heard my thoughts when it comes to Luther and DM throughout the series. Do you think this means anything? We know from Eleanor that mates can sense emotions, but I'm assuming that's only after the mating bond is accepted and solidified. So is this just a hint to how closely they are intertwined? We know that she can sense his feelings through his aura. So is this just like how in the mate's weeds they are?
That's what my understanding of it. Yes. Well, because she will get the Umbros magic and heat. So I don't think there's that telepathy between, mated bonds or because they're not mated yet either. So I do think that it's more so a nod that they are meant to be together. They are two halves of a whole, and it's a nod to that.
There's even this moment where she thinks Luther in her mind, and then his eyes fly open, finding her immediately. And yes, you guessed it, Luther is in italics.
See, like with that, I can imagine he is woken up by a nudge within him that she said that like his godhood was like hello, but he wouldn't know what that pull was of yet. Yeah, exactly.
We, of course, have every moment of DM and Sarai's interactions, from how Sarai is worried about the next crown shift, even though she suspects it being DM. When DM, almost in a daze, walks over to Sarai in the king's chambers, and Luther's like, no, DM!
I gotta say, I can't wait for Glow when Sarai is such a bigger character and is in, like, the meat of our episodes, because right now it's like, we promise we love her, it's just not quite there yet!
And last but not least, when leaving the palace, DM says that she never wants anything to do with it or anyone in the palace ever again. Give it like 50 pages, DM.
If even, yeah.
Now it is time to enter the Sophos Library, where each episode, Lexi guides us through a world-building topic to help us deepen our understanding of this world, the people within it, and its magic.
Today's Sophos Library topic is the Descended. It feels like a fitting time to finally dive into who these magical people are. Let's start with how the Descended came to be. The birds and the bees, Descended version. When the Kindred came to Amarian, a world that mortals already occupied, each of these 9 immortal siblings fell in love with a mortal. Instead of watching their beloveds wither to old age and die, the Kindred abandoned their eternal youth and bound their lives to their mortal lovers. This was performed through the forging spell, which split Amarian into the 9 realms we know today. Each realm was infused with its kindred magic. If you want to learn more about the Kindred coming to Amarian and everything around that, please check out our episode 1 Sophos Library, where we covered the history of Forging Day. The half-mortal, half-kindred offspring of these unions are who we know as the Descended. The Kindred all had gray eyes, and as part of their creation of the forging magic with the realms, their children would be born with the eye color of their realm of origin, and mortals would have brown eyes. So all descended in Lumnos have blue eyes, all descended from Fortos have red eyes, and so on and so forth. All descended are gifted with magical abilities which develop around puberty. Anyone who has a drop of kindred blood, like for instance half-mortals, will inherit the descended eye color and magical abilities of their realm of origin. Let's start with abilities that all of the descended have, which again they get when they grow up a little bit. So children do not have these abilities yet. All descended have quick healing. This super fast healing makes most illnesses and injuries harmless. For example, if a descended broke a bone, it would only take a fraction of the time it would take a mortal to heal. The downside to this super healing means that an injury could heal incorrectly if not treated before the healing kicks in. Descended also have skin that mortal blades cannot pierce. They also have super strength. This doesn't just apply to their actual physical strength, which is much, much stronger than mortals. See DM lifting a beam at 10 times her weight in the armory to save my boy Perth. Their bones are also extra strong. Actually, that does also go for the descended children too. So strong that mortals and even some of the weaker descended can't set a broken bone, leaving this task to the strongest to set a bone. Each of the 9 realms have 2 powers that a descended can get, with the strongest uncommonly getting both powers from their realm. A descended gets these magical abilities only from their realm of origin, like I was saying. It is unheard of and impossible for a descended to have powers from multiple regions. Until DM. Descendants' powers vary in strength, and it's never a guarantee that powerful parents will pass the same level of power strength onto their children, like we see with Eleanor, who was born because her parents are so powerful, yet she turned out to have weak magical abilities. In the case of a child being born of parents from different realms, the child will inherit the realm magic from whichever parent has the strongest magic. The magic does not mix or combine. They just get one realm's powers and eye color. When a descendant leaves their terre, which is their realm of origin, they lose access to their powers unless they are given permission from the realm's crown. The crown is the only one who has the ability to tap into their realm's forging magic to give anyone who is not from their realm their powers back.
Fun fact, terre in French means Mother Earth in English.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Moving on to descendants' weaknesses. While the descendant like to think they are indestructible, they do have a small handful of weaknesses, which include Godstone. It's a very rare substance made from the kindred. It is lethal and a painful death for the descended. Fertosian steel, a handful of rare poisons, and flame root, which temporarily nullifies their magic. If we're talking about the descended, we gotta talk about their air of superiority. Pinkies up, everybody. Many, if not the large majority of descended, believe themselves to be far superior to the mortals. Based on what we've seen, this tends to be more prominent in descended who hold positions of power, especially if they come from a well-known influential house. In other words, they have the most to gain from oppressing the mortals. This is why many of the realms place heavy restrictions on mortals or even ban them outright, not wanting anything to do with them in their realm. Unless you're in Montios, who banned mortals because they kept dying in the mountainous territory and they felt it was the best way to protect them. Over the generations, this way of thinking has driven a wedge further and further between the mortals and the descended. We've talked about this at length with the Guardian's mission, but it is just a general feeling for the mortals about the descended. They believe that the descended infected the mortals' thriving kingdom like a virus, infiltrated their homes, religions, cities, and universities, and then they ban or restrict mortals from those very same places that they themselves built so long ago. While different realms have different rules and regulations for mortals, there is a general deep-rooted disdain toward the descended across all of Amarian. Much like the Guardians, some mortals would love to see the end of the descended completely. Others just want to live with a more equal footing. And that is at least scraping the surface of what we know about the Descended.
Let us close out this episode with skipping around the apple orchard, talking about our favorite moments. I adore Lily's nonstop babbling when she sees Diem in Lumnos City. I especially love how much she tries to set up Luther and Diem, because at this point, I wonder if Luther has already started talking to Lily about Diem, to the point where Lily will eventually make up a game of changing the subject and seeing how long it takes for him to bring the subject back to Diem. That is adorable.
The way Diem talks to Luther and how later he'll say this is when he fell in love with her. Quote, "First of all, if you ever call me fragile again, I'll slice your precious royal balls off and shove them down your throat."
My girl!
And then the cherry on top is Taryn smiling and looking at her curiously like, ooh, she came to play. I like her.
Diem talking back to her godhood as it's trying to save her. She says, quote, "Fine, leave me alone. I'm up." Of course, every freaking second of Luther caring for Diem. When she's in and out of consciousness and he's shaking, holding on to her limp body, promising her that she will live. And Diem noting that she feels so very safe in his arms. Then, of course, to when he tells Eleanor that she prefers pants to wear rather than dresses because, of course, he's noticed and would make sure she got what she needs. Then, when she is laying in his bed, the smell seems similar to her beloved forest. Quote, "It smelled like home." I melt when Luther pulls Diem away from Sarai and saves her by holding her to his body. And by complete instinct, she grabs a hold of him just as tightly he holds onto her. And Sarai lets out a little like a little whir. I love that even Sarai is shipping these two so hard.
When Luther says it's disturbing how unusual it feels to hear Diem call him Your Highness, I just love the through line about the titles between these two. It's such a fun addition to their relationship and banter. All right, friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode 4 of our Spark of the Everflame deep dive.
We cannot believe next week is already our 5th and final episode of Spark. We will see you again on Monday, where we are diving deep into the end of this book, chapters 30 through 32, and of course, the epilogue.
We love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Crowns Council members.
Thank you so much for joining Sarah R., Scott S., Courtney M., Christina S., Taylor, Elena, and Summer. Welcome. We are so grateful for you, and thank you for supporting the show.
Yes. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted out on the podcast and to be showered with all the love too, join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is, of course, in the show notes.
Thank you, as always, to our top Sophos scholar, aka our content researcher, Brooke, and of course, our executive producer, aka our sanity manager, Hayden.
We are very active on social media with weekly trivia, Amarian guides, and lots more. So please be sure to follow us on Instagram and / TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube or want to watch on YouTube for the Henry hat references, although we did not have one this episode, but don't worry, we definitely will next, please hit that subscribe button to keep following along.
And while you're hitting buttons, please do not forget to rate and review this show. It takes 2 seconds to hit that 5-star button, to write a little love note in the review section. And please do it for every podcast that you listen to on a regular basis and that you love. It is so helpful. And of course, last but not least, share this episode with your fellow Everflame friends. If your favorite scene was the kiss scene and you needed to experience it in a different way with a fellow feral girl going through it, this is a good one to send to your other friends who like Luther a lot.
All right, friends, there we have it. We will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Then
Wake me
that
up
damn
inside.
voice comes back. I wish I could roll my R's so badly.
I'll teach you.
No, I've tried. I lived in South America. Everybody tried. I can't.